is
No, he was there.
the, yes. Okay. That's the only one.
You'll hear, Pat was there.
Okay. Pardon my English.
Sure. Thought you wanted us to look at that. All right, so no other changes or anything on the agenda, we're good?
Just 11 Eisenhower Lane, discussed.
Just got what?
Discussed.
Oh,
11 Eisenhower.
oh, 11 Eisenhower. Okay.
So,
I make a motion.
do we want to roll, is there anything you want to do before we do the RDAs?
Yes, the stormwater resource, Scituate Water Resource Conservation presentation.
I'm just going to quickly make a motion to accept the agenda as written with Eisenhower add-on.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. So, good evening.
My name is Shirley Young. I'm from the Water Resource Committee, and I would like to, 2 weeks ago, I had gave you the plan, the conservation plan, the draft one. We would like the Conservation Commission to support the conservation plan.
Okay. Pat, did you have a chance to?
Yeah, I went through it. I think everybody got an email, and I was, looking for things, how it would overlap with any of our regulations, and it kind of supports a lot of what we're doing, and it's mostly related strictly to water usage and, to some extent, sewer throughout the town. The one area was CPC, and they're going to be looking to go after CPC funds for open space for potential well use, or at least water protection areas, and I think that's something that, we've done in the past too. Have an open space, but it's also in a water protection district. So.
There was a, Penny?
No, I have no problem.
Richard?
I was fine with it.
Lisa?
Okay.
There was a piece, was there a piece on this in the wells? I did go through it, but it's been a while. On private wells?
Okay, yes, on the private wells now that I was suggesting that it's no longer using the public water, town water for irrigation. And for the private wells, we're also suggesting that once there is a ban, there's a water ban, the private wells will also follow a water ban, because we're all drawing from the same aquifer, even though the wells are drawing from aquifers, but eventually we are all using the same water.
But you're talking a real water ban?
Yes.
Not the restriction that you can only use the irrigation system once a week. You're not talking that. You're talking a ban on everybody using water because we have a drought situation.
For the outdoor use of water, yes.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I just want to make sure, because a lot of people are putting wells in so they can run the irrigation.
Right, and so that during that ban, when the public water is, when irrigation is limited, the private wells will also follow the same ban, same limitation.
For a drought, not
For a drought, not for normal use.
Okay.
Right, for a drought.
I just want to be sure.
Yes.
But there was one piece, I had actually been at a meeting one night during a presentation, and there was a thought that people on wells could only use water on the days allowed, that the town allows
In the district.
in the district.
Right, that's for during the water restriction.
Only during a restriction, or during a ban.
During the ban, yes.
Do you know where that section is?
That is,
Page 20, maybe?
Yeah, that's what I... Make sure that's what it is, Frank.
I think that we have people talk about, there's how, let's see, probably page 16, that's when we talk about what kind of actions there are. Irrigation restriction on page 16. So when there is an irrigation restriction, we are suggesting that private well people also follow the restriction.
That's kind of what I'm saying. Are you talking the restriction that is there now, or when there's a drought and we're on a water ban, which is different than?
So there's a water ban from May 1st to September 30th.
Yeah,
So whenever it's below, 5 feet below the spillway, then we have the total ban. We got a total outdoor watering ban.
Yeah.
And that, at that time,
that is the only
yes.
time you're talking about the private
Or
well,
the
is a total water ban.
Yes.
Because that, I mean, a lot of people have put their own wells in so they can run their irrigation, and it would be like a
Well, it would
slap
be
in the
nice to,
face.
the
We wanna
whole
know.
idea is to not use drinking water, but I understand that
Yeah.
it still draws from the aquifer at one location or another.
Yeah.
But it
I
seemed
mean,
like,
the best would be we just use cistern or some other device for the irrigation, but, short of that, we understand a lot of wells. Currently, I think the health department is trying to determine the permission for wells, when they apply for permission to drill wells, what the users are. So the health department is trying to set up the rules and regulation for that, whether they are permitted to use for irrigation or not.
do you remember seeing that, Pat?
No, on the top of 20, there's a little bit about that. Large-scale withdrawals via individually owned private wells for irrigation also tap the same water table, negating many of the desired impacts. So it looks like they're promoting either reclaimed water, but it doesn't really, I don't see the exact language about it. The bottom of 17, the last paragraph in 17 talks about it too, but it's...
See, there's where, it's at that last paragraph on page 17. At the time this plan has been finalized, the Scituate Board of Health is developing local regulations regarding private wells. Should the on-site well be developed for lawn irrigation purposes, the Board of Health regulations should require the use of water sensors, moisture sensors, and the use of the system should be limited to 1 day a week, just as those existing systems on the public supply.
I think
Oh, so it does
That's
have to
overstepping.
comply.
Right, and so those are the recommendations we have. And the reason why we put that send as the people who are using the system is because just for equality, because a lot of, we're at the, overall we are drawing the same water, even though it's well, it's still the same water aquifer will move, and so it was still eventually drawing the same type of water, and that's what I would like to recommend. And the other part is reinforcement, because unless people put sign for the well water in use, otherwise you don't really know whether they are using the town water to irrigate or they're using the well water to irrigate.
Well, the town has a program to inspect, and they have been inspecting the backflow preventers. So I think they know whose water is hooked up to a town water versus a well, versus near a well. So I think they have that information.
They check it.
Right, but sometimes when people drive by, neighborhood and they see water going, and so, they'll call in and complain and things like that. So
Right.
it's much more difficult to, regulate. And then because, yes, there's a discussion of whether the well water is, for private, is private owned or, or the aquifer actually moves around. And so tapping the well water, even though it's underground water, is not, eventually we're still drawing from the same aquifer.
Well, in different locations. I mean, we have locations around Scituate that are just different. I mean, you take the cliffs, and I was here at a discussion one night with the Board of Health about some of these pieces, and this particular subject
Right.
was discussed. I mean, seems to me like we want to encourage people that are going to use more irrigation, whether plants or agriculture or whatever, to not be wasting good
Treated water.
drinking water.
Drinking water,
But
yeah.
this piece, this paragraph, to me seems counterproductive to that.
Well, we are also trying to encourage people to use a greenscape, because what happens is people, when a lot of people overwater the lawn, and so if it's overwater, actually it's not producing drought-resistant lawn.
I understand.
And so once a week, if we water once a week, actually it's not necessarily damaging the lawn, comparative to, when it's during a drought. So
Right.
actually it's not counterproductive, it's not damaging the lawn. Therefore, we're not saying that you should not use the well water to irrigate at all. All we're saying is when this is only doing restriction of watering once a week, the well water users should also follow that. So we're not saying that, no, don't use it at all. But this is a recommendation.
I'm just not sure that, personally, that's a recommendation that I would endorse. I think a lot of it is excellent. That piece, in order to try to get people away from using municipal water, and that have gone through the expense of driving a well, or trying to encourage them to do that. In many places in town, they're not going to be necessarily drawing from the aquifer. But they're going to be bound to only one day a week. They're not going to, they'd be less encouraged to drive a well. And it's-
And, I mean, there are some other measures that could be taken, such as in-ground cistern and that type of things, or, or rain barrels and things like this, for not necessarily lawn irrigation, but for some other water.
Plants, shrubs.
Exactly.
People that want to establish a
Right.
new.
So what we would like to do is to really to encourage the community to conserve water, rather than saying, okay, if you're on a well, you could do whatever you want with the water, for irrigation. We would like to encourage them. And so
We
this
definitely
part-
want to have conservation and through all points, whether it's tightening up our existing distribution system, people using better quality plumbing fixtures, all those sort of things. No doubt about it. We all think that's, the pieces that they had for the new municipal buildings is fantastic. This is the one piece that I'm stuck on.
And then I could take it back to the committee and would review and talk about
I think I'd like to discuss that piece, and I know that you put a lot of work into it. I did vocalize that earlier.
Okay.
About my concern for that particular piece, and I'm not quite sure. It looks to me like it's the same as it was before. I don't know, anybody
I
else
didn't
have?
see the earlier version.
Does anybody, do you understand what I'm?
I understand, and I mean, if you want to
I mean, North and South River sent out a great piece that showed, it was very simplistic, but it showed, wells being driven next to a brook or stream or a wetland, and when they draw water down, it's obviously going to lower that level. That's a concern to the commission, that's for sure. But when you put in a blanket piece like this, I'm not sure that I want to endorse that entirely. Do you-
I mean, should we put something in writing for the Water Resource Group about this?
I think so. I think that would be the best way.
Yeah. I mean, I think if much of it we're in agreement with, and there's one piece we have a question with.
Right. I mean, I've spent a bunch of time with Jim DeBarros on those issues, you know, for habitat, for our fisheries, I think having, you know, a good water spillways, all that sort of thing. It's important not to lose that water, but I just think that that could be really counterproductive in trying to establish some of these goals. If people continue to try to use municipal water to water their lawns when they might have put in a well, and then, you know, that whole Herringbrook estuary is affected by that draw. You know, there's no doubt about it. And it could be even Bound Brook could be affected, even though that's not going into our drinking water directly. So I don't want to be a big...
If we gave comments to them and then brought it up for a vote at our next meeting, and, you know, whether they make the changes or they don't make the changes.
Yeah,
that
I'd even
way
be
we
willing
can-
to have a discussion
Okay.
about that, if that would be reasonable.
So would you like for me to invite John, who's our chairman, to come in next meeting to have a discussion? Or how would you like the discussion, where would you like the discussion to be done?
What do you think?
Well, I think we need a discussion, because I can't go for that paragraph. I know right now,
Okay.
you know, I just,
I think it would be, I think the message that goes back is, on the whole, the plan is really excellent, and we basically support it, but this is one area that we
Okay.
can't at this time, and it needs further discussion.
Okay,
All right.
all right.
But I would, whatever would make the most sense, whether it's a workshop that we need to do, or whether we feel we can do it at the next meeting, why don't you talk to John, he can give me a call, or
Okay.
talk to Pat, and we'll
Okay.
figure out what's the most productive way to
Okay.
discuss that, maybe rather than tie up a whole meeting
Okay.
here with other applicants and
Or
stuff.
maybe next time in January.
Or maybe your meeting.
At our meeting, you're welcome to
I'd be
come
gla-
to our meeting.
That would be fine with me as well.
All right, I believe that's January 23rd, so it's the fourth Tuesday.
Okay, all right. I know that this is a lot of work, and
Thank
I
you.
really commend everybody for working.
Yes, so that would be really great if you, I invite you to come to our meeting.
Okay.
On the,
The 23rd.
I believe it's the 23rd, the fourth Tuesday
Of
of the month of January.
January 23rd.
That's our next meeting.
okay. All right. And if we
Okay.
need to work at something in the meantime, let us know. We can
Okay.
go from there, okay?
Great, okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
Thanks.
Frank, we had a couple of quick RDAs we were going to try to get through. I know we're running a little behind, but there's a couple of septics that,
Okay. Do you want to just work our way down through the IDAs and get them done, or you want to jump around? We can move those around, because
one we're going to push back later, and one is asked for continuance. The first one, the Scout project over at the mill, Dave had another meeting tonight, so he requested a continuance.
We've already opened that, right?
Yes.
yes.
Yep. A couple of months
We made a
ago, yeah.
decision
Right.
when we got it.
So,
So,
move that we continue the Historic Society 16 Country Way, installing steps to complete the access to the grist mill.
yeah, for December 2nd.
Carol, did he mention when he'd like to be back on?
Well, let's just move it to there.
Yeah, December 2nd.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
The next one can get bumped back to when we have an opening.
So Barrow will be a little bit later,
Little
at
bit.
109 Booth
Yep.
Hill? Okay.
And the next two are both septics.
So is it Gagan?
King-
Bogan, Gagan, yeah.
Okay. Gogan, 11 Kingsway, septic repair. Give me 1 second here, Phil. On November 18th, 2015, the 6:15 meeting, the Town Hall of Scituate Conservation Commission will act on the request of Kathy Gagan for determination of applicability of the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act and the Scituate Wetlands bylaws to repair a septic system on property located 11 Kingsway, Scituate. Abutters and other interested parties are invited to attend. Phil?
That'll make it quick so we can get out of here. What we're looking for, we have a septic system designed, and you can see that the wetlands kind of surround the property. What we've done is we've pulled the system outside that 50-foot buffer, which is right into here. The system existing right now fits, it's in the backyard. We're putting a tank and a pump chamber within that 50-foot buffer because the only place to put it is in that location. And we're putting everything out. Long story short.
The biggest part.
But those are all tight. The tank and the pump chamber
Yeah,
are tight
all
anyways.
tight. Yeah, exactly. There's really no other place to place them.
Right.
Kingsway is over across from Wartuck, right? Down there, in there, isn't it?
Kingsway,
Tilden,
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
Woodland Road.
Oh, okay. Yep,
Right, Kurt, yeah, I know.
yeah, it's all right back there.
You know, in an old house, the piping's
Yeah.
already going to the back of the house,
House,
so...
so we can't
you'd have
move
to
it out
replumb the
front.
whole interior.
No, I
Yeah,
get it.
and those houses were built before. They've been there quite a while.
Any questions?
Nope.
Rich? Lisa? Pat?
Where's the existing system, Phil?
back, right? See where the-
Right there.
Yeah,
From an old plan that I have, the tank is right here and the system's right back in this location.
Oh,
We
this,
hit it, yeah.
okay,
See
okay,
the square
when you were
right
doing it.
yeah.
It's a lot better.
It's moved up.
It's a lot
Has to be
Yeah.
crushed and filled,
Huh?
and or is it was it a leaching field, or was it a
Yeah.
cess, oh, a leach field, okay,
It's shown on an old design plan of the leach field.
okay.
Anybody in the audience for number 11 Kingsway?
Wetlands were all delineated, and there's DEP data forms in the file.
I make a motion for -3.
Second.
All in favor? And then we're going to do Smith next, Phil? On November 18th, at 6:15 meeting, the Town Hall of Scituate Conservation Commission will act on the request of Becky Smith for a determination of applicability in the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act and the Scituate Wetlands bylaw to repair a septic system on property located at 643 First Parish Road, Scituate. Abutters and other interested parties are invited to attend.
And Phil Spath Engineering, what we're doing here is kind of the same thing. We have a cesspool located out, it's right back in this area. There's an existing cesspool right there. And what we've done is we've pulled everything as far up as we can, put the tank, pump chamber, and pumping it in the system right in there, so we can push it back outside the 50-foot buffer between 150. Well, that's how the plumbing works.
Yeah, I know.
I don't know what to tell you.
It would be so nice to have it all over here, out of the 100.
Still better.
Yeah, no. I mean, any new system's better.
This address is really First Parish Road.
Okay.
Right in here, and this is it's 643 First Parish, and it's either a drive that goes up here and serves
Yeah.
the two houses.
I get it.
It's way down. That's still better than conservation.
Yeah. Well, it's a better system, and it's
Yeah.
out of the
no,
50.
Yeah.
It's not a cesspool.
No. Oh. I'm all set.
I'm fine.
Is it a Presby system?
Doesn't matter.
I'll get it.
Anybody in the audience for 643 First Parish Road?
I'm going to sleep anyway, so.
You didn't draw a crowd, Phil.
No, I make a motion for -3.
Second.
Thank you. Good
Thank you.
night.
Good night.
you want to vote on that, Frank?
A motion.
Yeah, we have
Motion
the
and
motion
second.
and second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thanks, Penny.
There you go.
What do you want to do? Do you want to do the town? Or borrow?
I think 6:30 would be the next one up.
You want to go,
Yeah, I think the other RDAs can be done later. I mean, we have a 6:30 starting time for some of the orders. And the town is going to be here later anyway, because they have a hearing at 7:30.
okay, I tried, Sean.
That's okay. No, we'll do them all at once. I don't,
All right. 6:30 wetland hearing, this is a continuation, BTZ Realty Trust, Costello, lots 31, 32, Fieldstone Road, concrete driveway for access, this was continued.
A bunch of revised plans came in yesterday. I don't know if you guys...
You can share it, or-
It's the same
Yeah, I did
site
see
plan
it.
itself. We did provide a planting plan though, that outlines the plantings that were proposed.
Fire away.
For the record, Gregory Morse, Morse Engineering, Leo Costello, the trustee of the BTZ Realty Trust, with me tonight. This is the second hearing we've had on this project. This is a notice of intent application to construct a common driveway at lots 31 and 32 Fieldstone Road. The plan itself, the site plan, remains unchanged. It proposes a 16-foot wide bituminous concrete driveway as depicted through this location off of Long Meadow Road. This is to access the applicant's upland property where he desires to build 2 single-family homes. You may recall the wetlands on this site. There's a bordering vegetated wetland shown in blue, the 50-foot buffer zone shown in red. The green represents the 100-foot buffer zone. This project, to access the upland portion, does require a wetland crossing. The crossing that we've depicted results in 2,050 square feet, and what we proposed is we proposed a replication area at a ratio of 2 to 1, as depicted on the site plan, and then further documented in the plans by Brad Holmes that was submitted. Pat and I conducted a site walk after the last meeting. We reviewed this location. I also prepared a letter that I submitted to the commission last week that outlined the different alternatives for access to this site. There were primarily 3 access points that this property gain access from, one of them being the end of Bittersweet Circle. Bittersweet Circle, the applicant has frontage there, but again, there are significant wetlands at the end. It would result in an approximately 200-foot-long wetland crossing, therefore more alteration than the current proposal, so we did not proceed with that alternative. The second access point would be off of the end of Long Meadow Road. The applicant owns frontage at the end of Long Meadow Road. However, this wouldn't be viable because it violates zoning bylaw section 720.7, which prohibits the construction of a common driveway off of a cul-de-sac, and it prohibits the construction of a common driveway if it's serving more than 3 homes. Both of those would need variances from the Zoning Board of Appeals in this application. The third alternative was the alternative that we selected and submitted for this design. That was the crossing here, the crossing again resulting in 2,050 square feet of resource alteration. We felt that was the best alternative. We reviewed the Wetlands Protection Act regulations 310 CMR 10 with review to BVW in the performance standards. The performance standards that the state has, they outlined them in their review of the project on the website and in their issuance of the DEP file letter. The state indicated that you needed a minimum of a 1-to-1 replication area. We're providing a 2-to-1 replication area. The state said that the groundwater and surface elevations of the replacement area shall be equal to that of the lost area. we're demonstrating compliance because we're replicating in approximately the same, well, in the same watershed, as well as approximately the same elevations as the area of the fill being placed. We're not proposing alteration of any other resource areas. We're not filling in any floodplain area. We're not altering any banks. There's not an intermittent stream running through this. We are providing a culvert underneath the driveway so that any flows could be continued after the filling would be done. We reviewed the Scituate wetland regulations. Scituate wetland regulation 10.12 is specific activities regulated. This commission specifically regulates replication of bordering vegetated wetlands. Under that section, there are 7 specific requirements that must be met, and we feel that we demonstrate compliance with those requirements with the material we've submitted. Primarily that we've performed the alternatives analysis of the alternative options of the site. We've demonstrated that the project is not within the Water Resource Protection District. The local regulations are more stringent than DEP. The local regulations prohibit filling of more than 2,500 square feet as opposed to DEP is 5,000. Our proposal is under the town limit. We're at 2,050. We're providing the wetland replication with plantings that are native to the area. I've provided a written narrative as well as the plan narrative depicting the locations and types of plants that would be proposed, and then that anyone that proposes a replication project must monitor it for an area or a timeline of 5 years. Again, that's outlined in my letter. I didn't receive any additional comments or requests for any additional information after our site walk. I thought I outlined the regulations accordingly with this submittal. I'd turn it over for any comments or questions.
Pat, do you want to, maybe because you went out on the site visit, why don't you start, and then we can go to the members and to the audience?
Yeah. I think if this were a parcel that was undeveloped in the past, I think everything they presented tonight would have been a great way to mitigate and to provide a crossing, minimizing the damage. But it's a parcel that the property owner has chosen to do other things with and has created his own hardship in this case, so there's no way to get to these 2 buildable lots. We're being asked to allow a wetland crossing where this part of this parcel could have been accessed without any wetland crossing originally. The choices were made, and now, I think property owners should request a variance from Zoning Board of Appeals to allow some other property development and using the same access that he's using for his 2 current homes and horse farm that's out there. So, I mean, all of the information about replication and all that would fit our guidelines if it were the only way into the parcel, but I think that's been closed off by a previous decision.
So, right now, it's all one piece of land? Or
There were some interior lot lines, but it's all generally under the common ownership, correct? These 2 lots here are separate realty trust. The 2 houses that would be constructed, though, are on Costello land, correct?
Correct. Right. These lots are owned by my children already. I own the upland, which I'm going to give them.
So when you were in the last time, Greg, we talked about maybe seeing like the whole picture of this. Did you ever...
I didn't provide an overlay of the whole lot. I just looked at the other alternatives and just tried to write a written description of them.
But I think we talked about that as to get a whole scope of everything that's there. And maybe you guys had the opportunity to look at that.
So this is all this property.
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
We walked a good piece of it, but...
Right.
See, that's all the property they own right there.
Was on the application, the last page. It gives you a little bit of an overview of how much property is owned there.
And Figure 3 in our notice of intent is an aerial photo. Mine's in black and white, yours should be in
Yep.
color, though.
Well, on the last page, you have,
The assessor's overlay.
yeah.
Yep. But toward the front, you should
Well, I'm
have a
just trying
colored
to show them
photograph.
something that shows it's a humongous piece of property, the whole thing.
In total, we're talking, 25 acres thereabouts in size. A good portion of that is upland area. As far as I'm aware, you haven't requested any wetland filling anywhere else on the property for anything you've done? No.
So you should go to the
It hasn't been a segmented project in any way with multiple filings.
My feeling, if anyone's interested, is I would like to see you approach ZBA and find out if they can help you before we entertain a wetlands crossing, and let you make a private road or something out of your common driveway.
I mean, there's a driveway in now that you can access the two homes and the barn, and...
I know.
And if they could consider allowing that being the entranceway to these other two lots, that would be preferable, I would think, than filling the wetlands. I mean,
Well, I'd like to entertain that before I entertain letting someone cross it. That's just me.
yeah, the other thing with DEP, I mean, we have the bylaw, but also the state regulations, it's avoid, minimize, and then replicate. So if you have a way to avoid it, you got to go through every possible way you can to avoid filling a wetland. And I think going to zoning would be one, and maybe past decisions could have been made differently.
Richard?
I agree, actually. I think that it would be a good idea to try your ZBA first and see if there is any other alternative before we start giving permission when it's so clearly discouraged.
Lisa?
I feel the same way.
You and I have had this discussion before about prior development. If someone has a piece of, an area that has one access in an upland, and then they use it to develop part of the property, but then come back and say, we want to access our backland, but we've already built the house out in front. So the only way into this backland now is another drive or road or whatever. And is that a reg, Pat, is that in the, how does that fit into the state?
Yeah, I mean, the state is a little bit different than the local regulations. I mean, they are...
Or is it our bylaw that says that you have to, I'm just wondering where that piece is,
Well, the state is avoid, minimize, replicate, and it's creating your own hardship if you've built something that prevents you from getting to an area that you wanted to get to, and now you're asking for a crossing. I mean, if this was just an untouched land, you could have built these two houses. You could have chosen it. You've gotten use out of your land.
well, you're saying if they hadn't done anything here, right? Like there was no, it was the
Right.
20 acres, there wasn't a horse barn, there wasn't a
Right.
home or anything like that, and they came to the commission, and they wanted to develop these two lots, plus the home that's there now and that, we wouldn't have entertained a driveway at one end and a wetlands crossing. What we would have said was make your access
Right.
on the uplands.
Right. If it were totally surrounded by wetlands and it was a piece of upland, your only way in...
And was a
that's
wetlands
what-
crossing, then that
Right.
would be allowed.
Right. That would be, otherwise, you may be facing a taking or something if you didn't allow access to it.
Right.
But that's not the case here. There was an upland way into the parcel, and it's just been divided in a way that has left these two lots in a tough spot.
I guess, the other part I guess I would ask is how much disturbance is going to be required to get access to those, and maybe it's irrelevant, but if the driveway or road that has to come to those lots comes through there, is there a much greater disturbance to do that, I don't know.
Maybe part of the corral area, you know, but it wouldn't be any wetland disturbance to get to them,
Okay.
so.
Utilities. So you'd have to get your water and
But I guess I still don't, I mean, that's the frustration I have with this, is I still don't see the whole picture
Okay.
very clearly. But right now, you've got 3 members that are telling you that they think you should go back for a variance.
And then, hopefully they'll give it to you.
But I guess my point is, and if that's the rule or the regulation, then that's the avenue that they should take. I would hate to say to somebody, you know what, you can't go over this, how many lineal feet of wetlands is there?
Is it 2,000, I think, is it?
2,000
Yeah.
total.
Yeah.
The access is
The linear footage, though, is approximately 40 feet.
So to avoid 40 feet going over a wetlands, they might be mowing down 250 feet of woods to get to these pieces, I
But it's
guess.
not the Woods Protection Act, it's the Wetlands Protection Act, so, I mean, that's what we're, supposed to be fixing, so.
If the applicant was going to be going to Zoning Board of Appeals, do you think you could, in good faith, write in a letter of support, of supporting alternative means of access to this? This project, as you see it, the way I see it, the way I read the regulations here, you have 2 different types of projects. You have projects that are specific activities that are regulated. Replication of wetlands is one of them, and we comply with these specific activities that are regulated. You also have what's called a limited access project. A limited access project is where you have a project that can't necessarily comply with these regulations, and it allows you to go above and beyond the 5,000-foot state, and it allows you to go beyond the 2,500 square foot local, okay? And that's to access the upland portions of your property if that's your only means of access. We're not asking for that limited access status because we feel that we're within the regulated activities. Could a letter of support, a simple letter of support, be written that would say that you would be supporting the applicant's request for a variance as an alternative of permitting a fill of a wetland resource area?
Yeah, I could attend, we could certainly write it, I could attend the ZBA hearing if that would help. I mean, we're not trying to prevent the development of this land, it's just that there may be a way to do this without us rolling over on our state regulations.
I think it would be a preferred alternative to go that way.
You know, the reasons that I'm sure the ZBA will have with not permitting them off the end of a cul-de-sac is it's already a real long distance to the end of Long Meadow Road. And now we're doubling back almost that entire distance to get back to these 2 house locations. So it's that much longer for fire apparatus, it's that much longer of a dead-end road, it's a much longer access way. So that's something I don't know if they'll consider waiving. They're going to probably get input on public safety aspect for that.
and it's probably close to 1,000 feet to come in.
Well, I guess that's, and like I say, I wish we had a plan
Right.
that showed us how this whole piece would lay out, but I understand what Pat's saying, we're here to protect the wetlands, the Wetlands Protection Act, but we've also, in many other projects, tried to minimize disturbances in general, and then you try to weigh those pieces out a little bit. These houses will probably get developed either way, which is the least impact to the surroundings. But I can't really see that with that plan either, because I'm not seeing the whole picture. But I think that it looks like the commission would prefer to see them look at the zone, look at the piece and see if you can come off the cul-de-sac, and we can support that, and then see where you fall from there. I still would like you to come back and say, if they did approve it, I'd still like to see how much disturbance there was and weigh the thing out, but that's just my own personal.
Sure. What are the December meeting dates?
The 2nd and the 16th?
Yes.
For us? 2nd or 16th, yeah.
What about the ZBA? They only meet once a month, don't they?
I mean, 45 days or so before they even get on.
Right.
We're hearing with them unless
We'd make their agenda, but it's on December 17th. What's the next meeting date?
January
All right.
7th,
January
Yeah,
6th or
it's-
7th?
first Wednesday of January. Oh,
Yeah.
at the moment.
Yeah.
The selectmen are grabbing this,
They're taking our night.
Okay.
so we may be a Tuesday or something so it may just be the 16th.
Oh, you're talking
Sixth.
January?
Yeah.
So it might be the
Might be the
6th.
6th.
We could go in and ask informally for an opinion on it. Do they need, do you need a?
They meet tomorrow night. I don't know if they do informal discussions or not. We'll be there, so I can certainly ask that.
I mean, there's no reason that we can't bump this out. If we can,
Yeah.
we just have to continue it to a date. If you want to continue it,
Could we continue to the December 16th date?
And then
And
we can
we can
bump it
We
again.
can bump to the early January if we have to?
Yes.
Sure.
Okay, I make a motion that we continue BTZ Realty Trust to December 16th at 6:40.
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Thank you.
At some point, coming back, it would be helpful, even if it's a simple schematic plan,
The
to
overall.
get a full picture of where the road might be and where the lots are and where the houses might, just, I know it's not set in stone, but,
Yeah,
okay?
will do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Do you still want to stick with the regular NOIs and then go back to the IDAs later?
Yeah, I think we're a little behind on the NOI.
All right. Smith, 151 Border Street, garage continued.
Oh, yes.
Can we just, want to put that over here, I guess? Sure.
Want me to take down Greg's board?
Yeah, I guess he didn't want it.
Can I have his easel?
I'll
Sure.
move back so we can let some of the audience see.
If he's still in the hall, see if he wants it back. He might have another presentation, I don't know.
I've got the plans, I just got them today.
That one was tricky last time. I think so.
I see your point.
Yeah.
Let's see what happens.
Good evening.
Good evening, Mrs. Snow.
Good. Thank you. Good evening, everyone. My name is Adam Brodsky. I'm here on behalf of the applicant, Don Smith. You actually know this team, Carmen Hudson from Cavanaro Consulting, and Sean Papich, who is our landscape architect. I believe this is the third hearing on this matter, and I was asked to offered my advice because there are some regulatory issues that the commission needed some assurance regarding. You'll remember that this is a proposed garage to be located in a previously altered area on this site. It is located in the outer riparian zone to the Gulf River, so it's more than 100 feet from the Gulf River. So it's in the outer riparian zone. I think there may have been some misunderstanding and some suggestions that there may have been sins associated with the development of this particular property, and I actually spent a considerable amount of time going through it, and in fact, all of the alterations on this property actually met the performance standards, including the performance standards for riverfront. There was an order of conditions issued for the house in 1998, and there were additional improvements that were permitted under an order of conditions in 2002 that also included a pool. At that time, this property actually was a larger lot. It included the lot next door, which I believe is now 159. I can actually show you just quickly. This is actually the plan of record that was attached to the 2002 order of conditions.
Thanks, Adam.
Very welcome. And you see, it's a large lot that was later actually divided in 2011. I can show you actually not a subdivision plan, an A&R plan in 2011. But you see it's a larger property when these improvements were constructed. So this is 2011, so we're more than a decade prior to 2011. At the time that the house was permitted, as well as the pool and the other improvements, there was approximately 103,316 square feet of total riverfront on the larger lot. 10% of that is 10,316 square feet. I asked Carmen, I tortured Carmen by asking her to add up all of the structures that exist on the property today. Those totaled 9,298 square feet, less than 10%. This is a post-1996 lot. You're allowed to alter up to 10% of the riverfront area. And so I just wanted to point out the fact that this site actually met and complied with the performance standard. As you know, the lot was later divided in 2011. It doesn't matter. The order of conditions, the construction, and the certificate of compliance was issued for the property prior to the division of the lot. It's perfectly appropriate under the regulations to do that. I'm not going to address the neighbor's lot next door. I have some opinions regarding it, but that's not why I'm here. But the point I wanted to make was that this actually complied with the performance standard. So this is not an instance where you're dealing with perhaps a mistake by a prior commission, which is important to me because I actually signed the 2002 order of conditions when I sat on this commission. So it was reassuring that I didn't make a mistake. So the second point is that I know that Pat has spoken to DEP, and Carmen has spoken to DEP about this, and we actually agree with DEP that we can't have any new alterations of undisturbed riverfront area on this property. We're essentially maxed out because the lot was divided. However, you can redevelop previously altered riverfront area under the Wetlands Protection Act. And I should note that your bylaw is not more stringent than the Wetlands Protection Act in this instance. There are no additional protections under the bylaw. So we're really governed by the wetlands regulations in this instance. And there are two ways in this case where you're permitted to alter previously disturbed area. The first is that the wetlands regulations, particularly 1058, which relates to riverfront, allows you to conduct minor exempt activities which are referred to elsewhere in the regulations at 310 CMR 10.022B1. And specifically under that, you're allowed to convert lawn to accessory uses provided you're more than 50 feet from the mean annual high watermark of the riverfront area. We're far in excess of that. You'll see actually on the 2002 plan that there's a dog pen that we permitted, and Pat and I have some disagreement with respect to it. At least I'm comfortable that the dog pen was in fact permitted, and in fact is constructed. You can see, let's see, we have some photographs right here. Well, you can see the dog pen that was constructed, and it's in the approximate area where the garage is going. So that's a view from the driveway. There's the dog pen, and that's where the garage is going to be going. We're going to be converting that dog pen, which has ground cover, and a fence, to the proposed garage. As you know, under the Scituate zoning bylaw, a garage is a permitted residential accessory use under the bylaw in section 430.2. So the conversion of this altered area that's presently a dog pen, and in fact the garage is smaller than the permitted dog pen, is entirely consistent with the riverfront regulations that allow these minor exempt activities. And just as, again, a point of information, DEP supports the use of that minor exempt activity for expansion of single-family houses generally. In 2005, they actually proposed to put something in there that said you can increase the footprint of a single-family home 20%. They tried it again in 2014, about a 50% increase. The MACC just didn't want to see any more language with respect to that. But DEP supports the use of the minor activity exemption to expand single-family houses, and this is entirely consistent with that. You may have seen an old guidance document floating around that ties that minor exempt activity exemption to pre-1996 lots. This is a post-1996 lot. That regulation was changed in 2005, and the pre-1996 requirement was eliminated. So that guidance document you see floating around is no longer current. DEP changed the regulations. So this is clearly a minor exempt activity that would be allowed under that provision. There's another avenue that you can redevelop previously altered area, and that's if the area is degraded. Again, you can't have any new alteration of undisturbed riverine area. We can see that, but you can redevelop degraded areas. I'd suggest that the construction of the dog pen with the fence and the ground cover constitutes a degraded area. There is a requirement, however, and that is that you provide 2-to-1 mitigation. The project is proposed to you had a proposed mitigation of 1-to-4, it's a little bit over 1-to-1. And Carmen and Sean can speak to this if you want more details. We revised the plan to actually show 2-to-1 mitigation in the inner riparian zone, where you really want to see mitigation to create meaningful habitat. And so we actually meet the requirements for redevelopment of previously altered areas under that degradation provision. So I guess it's a lot of information to throw at you. I guess to summarize, prior work on this lot met performance standards, and there are no, as I mentioned, past sins. We're not proposing new alteration of undisturbed riverfront area, which we concede you can't do in this instance because of the division of the lot. We're proposing converting a dog pen to an accessory use more than 100 feet from the river, which is allowed in under two circumstances. One, it's allowed as a minor exempt activity. It's also allowed as redevelopment. Because of the mitigation, you're actually getting a net improvement of habitat. I mean, candidly, where the project is located is going to have no impact whatsoever on any of the interests protected under the Wetlands Protection Act or your bylaw, particularly with respect to riverfront area. Having said that, we're providing a net improvement by providing mitigation that's going to improve wildlife habitat functioning. So with that said, I certainly can have Carmen or Sean take you through the landscape plan, but that's my overview of the matter.
Okay. If you don't mind, I think I'd rather jump. But Pat had a conversation with DEP. I've obviously had a chance to do this. I think maybe it would be better for the commission if you give us your input first.
As you can see, this one is a pretty complicated one, and with the riverfront and the dividing of the lot, I thought maybe if I spoke with DEP, we could get, it's their regulation, we figured I could get it from them. As Adam mentioned, this complied at one time and got a certificate of compliance. But now it's been divided, so it doesn't comply, and if you go to add additional impervious in there. So he's maxed out on what he can add. The dog pen was never on the approved site plan. There's nothing about that on there. It shows up in some landscaping plan that was submitted later. But I did bring that up with DEP. I said, well, what about the conversion of a dog pen area to a garage? And they say, well, it's pervious, and it's really not considered degraded. It's been used. So their recommendation, I said, well, is there any way we can make this work? And their recommendation was, if you remove something impervious, the same distance from the riverfront as we'd like to put the garage, that would be something that could be considered. they didn't talk about the other lot, we didn't talk about that at all. It's just that if you look at this lot now, you've maxed out what you can do for impervious. They were also concerned that there was so much vegetation in the inner riparian that's no longer there. And, you know, they had suggestions about planting or letting that grow natural anyway. But, I mean, as far as the mitigation plantings and everything, I thought that might be something I would consider, but they're saying, you know, you have to remove something if you want to put the garage in. They weren't against having the garage go in there, but it looked like something had to come out.
Well, didn't we talk a little bit about some of the driveway being pulled up?
Yeah, we did. I suggested that.
Did we talk about that last time? Yeah.
If I might,
Yeah.
this is actually the plan of record referenced in the 2002 Order of Conditions. So I gave you the actual plan right down to the revision dates, which clearly show the dog pen, but we don't, you know, that's not an issue. And I can appreciate DEP's view about, you know, the issue of degradation. However, and Pat, correct me if I'm wrong, you didn't have a conversation with them regarding the minor activity exemption. So there are two regulatory paths to get this thing done. And so I think this falls clearly within the minor activity exemption. With respect to alteration of vegetation in the 100-foot, I mean, we have no knowledge of that. We can't do any additional work out there unless we come forward and you know, consult with the commission. You know, if there's, you know, there are means under the Wetlands Protection Act to manage vegetation within jurisdictional areas. So we'd have to comply with the Wetlands Protection Act or your bylaw anyway if we're going to do any additional alteration out there. But I mean, you know, we have a new owner of a property out there. Having said that, looking at the photographs, it's fairly naturally vegetated. It's a shaded area. You're not going to get a lot of growth there, but there's no, you know, we can't go out there and alter that vegetation in any event going forward.
Oh, I think the suggestion was to just let it go, not maintain it as a lawn area.
Well, I don't think it's maintained as a lawn area, but as I said, if we wanted to cut that area, it's jurisdictional, we'd have to come in and file an RDA,
Yeah.
or, you know, come in and at least consult with you regarding that.
There is an area of vegetation down near where the pool is, though, that is probably what this whole area looked like. And the rest of it is, you know, the trees have been limbed, and there's, you know, pine needles and there's grass. So, I mean, I think DEP was concerned about that. But, I mean, that's a separate issue than what we're dealing with
for example,
here.
if they wanted to create views, we do, you know, if we wanted to do vista pruning, we'd have to come in order to do that. So I'm suggesting that, you know, whatever happens in the future, we're going to have to come in to the commission in any event. But there's no proposal before you to alter any of that vegetation within the 100-foot. With respect to the pervious versus the impervious, any exchange of impervious for pervious would be located essentially further away from the river than where the garage is located. But candidly, it's going to serve no environmental benefit. You're more than 100 feet away from the river. We're not in a public water supply where you're concerned about infiltration. There are no issues with potential sediment getting into any wetlands. And so, you know, while I can appreciate the desire to have more pervious, it's not going to serve any overriding wetland function here. That's why we focused our efforts on mitigation, meaningful mitigation by creating additional wildlife habitat.
So what did you end up with, your ratio?
Oh, great, it's 2-to-1, but Sean, why don't you just...
It's 2-to-1 now?
Would you give it a quick overview? That'd be
Sure.
great.
Well, can I clarify one thing, Pat? Because you're saying that they don't have any more room to develop, they've met their ratio, and I'm hearing Adam say that they still have...
No, I agree. So if we wanted to build, you know, a cottage on the property in an area of undisturbed riverfront area, you know, where, I don't know, you know, anywhere on the lot, we couldn't do that. All we can do is take previously altered area and convert it to a permitted use. And then the regulations specifically say you can do that, particularly for an accessory use to a single-family home, which is what this is. This is a textbook garage, which is an accessory use defined under the zoning bylaw.
Okay.
So again, if we came in and I wanted to, build a guest cottage on this property and put it in an area of undisturbed riverfront, we can't do that because we're maxed out for new alteration. This has nothing whatsoever to do with new alteration. That's why I agree with DEP and Pat's statement with respect to that. This is redevelopment of previously altered riverfront area.
Okay.
Right, I mean, I think the issue is the dog pen and the minor exempt activities. The information we were going by didn't eliminate the fact that you could go back to 1996 or whatever that was.
I can show you. I have actually the regulatory change if you want to see it.
All right, that would be interesting to see. I'd have to see that. But the dog pen area, I agree. You could do mitigation for that. It's just that with the state law, I wanted to make sure we weren't going above what is allowed in the riverfront area once a lot's been divided like this. And so I asked the specific question, what about the dog pen trade? And they said no. So I'm just passing on what they had said about that. So.
But you said that they would allow in exchange for, I mean...
The dog pen's pervious, so they were looking if you were equidistant and impervious.
But I don't see anything that's the same
right
distance for this garage.
Right. It would be difficult or impossible. I agree with you. Right.
So Pat, just so you know, and by the way, I got this from John Rockwood, who's the current president of the Association of Massachusetts Wetlands Scientists, who is the keeper of all things regulatory. Prior to 1995, this is the effective version. Actually, 1058 was the variance provision. The Rivers Act hadn't come into being yet. When the Rivers Act was adopted in 96, here's the 97 version of the regulation. You have minor activities, and there's your pre-96 reference.
Yep.
Then the regulations were changed in 2005 when they did a major revision of the wetlands regulations, and they specifically took all of the pre-96 language out of the regulations. And so that remains in the current version, which is 2014. So it's limited now to certain minor activities as identified in section 10.022B1.
That may only apply if you haven't used up your 5,000 or your 10%.
Well, again, we're talking about two different things here. No, it doesn't say that in the regs.
But on the other hand, there is language in the regs to say if you've used it up, you've used it up. They don't say, unless you want to do exempt minor activities. That might
actually, it doesn't say that. You actually, again, we're conceding tonight that we can't do any more work for different reasons because of the division of the lot. But the minor activity exemption is not limited to that. Provided it's just simply not in the regulations. So there's no limitation on a minor exempt activity. And by the way, it's an exemption, which means you don't even have to do a filing for it. It's a clear exemption, such as mowing of lawns is an exemption under the Wetlands Act. You don't need to do a filing. So the regulation changed in 2005, and I needed to track that down because I knew that you'd ask me that question.
Well, and is a garage a minor activity, minor exemption?
So actually, if you read the language, it's an exemplar. It says such as sheds, patios, pools, things like that. It's not limited to specific items. They give simple examples of that. And I have found adjudicatory cases that deal with garages treated as minor activities under that. The Boo Dre case, which actually dealt with the old regulation that had that 96 language in there, was a garage that was allowed as a minor exempt activity. So there's a reasonable good faith basis for me.
But it'd be interesting that the DEP expert on the Riverfront Act didn't go along with that, with the garage.
As far as I understand, and again, I wasn't there, but Carmen did speak with Greg DeCesar. You guys were all talking about redevelopment and the degradation provisions. Again, there are two different paths to do this. I don't know if you had any specific conversations with them regarding minor exempt activities. So I think you can approve this using either of those things. And again, we can disagree as to what constitutes a degraded riverfront area. I'd suggest that when you put a dog pen up, you change the surface of it I think that's a degraded area. It's, it's not your prototypical industrial site where you've got, asphalt and whatnot. But I think it's a good faith interpretation of the regulation. And again, more importantly, nothing we're doing is creating any adverse impact to any of the interests protected under the Rivers Act. I mean, it's just, that's the overriding purpose of what we're doing here.
And if this weren't in the riverfront area, if it were a buffer to a bordering vegetated wetland, I'd certainly go along with everything you said. Minor activity, exempt, replanting, replication. It's the square footage of disturbance in a riverfront lot that they had a concern with, that, I'm just advising them about. Another easy one for the commission.
Yeah.
I haven't think it is. I think the history is difficult, and it's always difficult to work with the Rivers Act regulations because we don't do a lot of it, but it's a pretty simple regulatory analysis.
Carmen, what was the conversation you had with DEP?
So I spoke with Greg after Greg spoke with Pat. And what he said is that he did agree with the 10%. And we were going over the redevelopment of a previously developed area. This was looking at the lot as an already altered area used as when it was used as a farm. And we only got down, we started going one by one. And by the way, degraded areas are not just paved areas. They're also areas that are absent of topsoil, which the dock then doesn't have topsoil. It has crushed down. But so we were going one by one, and we got to, it was before the 2-to-1 mitigation, and I need to have the regulations too, but it said if you have a riverfront area that where you had not reached the 10% alteration, that you can go up to the 10% of alteration. And that's when we stopped, and I was like, you know what, this is getting just too complicated. I think that we should really have somebody that is an expert in the regulations, and that is when I advised my client to go ahead and seek legal counsel. But during my conversation, Greg did agree that, there should be a 10% upheld, but we didn't reach so if you keep on going further down in the list of things that can be done as a redevelopment project, it says that that section that requires you to keep up to 10% only of, in this case, like impervious areas, you can go beyond that as long as you provide a 2-to-1 area of mitigation. And then also, if in order for it to be a redevelopment thing, it has to have actually a positive impact in the riverfront, which in this case we argue that it does, because we're actually creating habitat value at the 2-to-1 ratio. But again, we didn't even get that far with Greg because we had been on the phone already for a while, and
Sure.
I just felt that it wasn't really the right person to be going over this.
Okay.
And so, by the way, just for a minor exempt activity, you're not required to provide any mitigation for doing that. And so, notwithstanding that, we've come forward with the 2-to-1 mitigation.
Sure.
I never discussed the exemptions with Greg. It was just redevelopment.
Okay.
One of the things that we talked about was, could we go further away from the area of your garage and do some removal of impervious back further near the other garages, something like that. I mean, he wasn't in favor of that, but I mean, I don't see anything in black and white on that, about if you're removing impervious, does it have to be the same distance or closer to the river than the place that you're putting the garage in?
Yeah,
I don't know if there's something
again,
further away.
I mean, if we were, in 25 feet from the river and we had a parking lot and you wanted to redevelop that area, it makes sense to be talking about changing impervious surface asphalt to something pervious. We're over 100 feet away from the river, outside of your buffer zone for the coastal bank. I mean, it would be, something like that would just be nothing more than a token gesture without any environmental benefit. So that's why we wanted to spend the dollars doing something meaningful with wildlife habitat.
No, I agree with you. I'm just saying that if the numbers are important to DEP, then we have to consider the numbers. We can't disregard them.
Well, you don't need to consider, again, you don't need to consider the numbers if it's a minor exempt activity. I don't think you need to consider the numbers for redevelopment under 1058-5 in this particular instance. So,
If we were to condition this with the mitigation that they're proposing, is there any way that DEP can review our decision? I mean, we've already floated this thing.
If we close the hearing, we can't get any new information.
Right.
I mean, if you closed it and conditioned it, we sent it into them, they could appeal it if they
Right.
were not in favor of, I mean, if you're looking at the argument that you're not doing any damage by replacing the dog pen with this garage, we totally agree with. We're looking at the disturbance within the riverfront area. So it may be that this comes into them and there's been some mitigation, there's a garage, and they may say, the site's no worse off. It was a complicated case. It goes back to a previous owner. It's a division of a lot that shouldn't have happened. But,
I guess I
like that.
Yeah. I'm not trying to pass the buck, but it is fairly complicated. I think if we close the hearing, do our conditions with the garage there, certainly the apron or the entrance from the garage to the driveway ought to be at least pavers or something as opposed to asphalt. The revegetation or planting of the area between the house and the river, do we have what is that, what was proposed for that area?
We have 600 square feet in that area, 1,500 square feet in the area.
You want to just show us?
Yeah, I can show
well,
exactly.
actually, see there are two distinct mitigation areas. One area here, and this is the new mitigation area, and Sean can explain what he's proposing there.
Sure.
Yeah, we intend to plant each area with some similar species, ones that you're obviously very familiar with. Using inkberry, high-bush blueberry, Virginia sweet spire, and even some ferns, some Christmas fern. Down in here, using those same plants, but also using some winterberry. So going for the food source, also going for the cover, really. Inkberry will also be evergreen, will provide some cover. It does provide food, but it's probably more about the cover when it comes to inkberry. Large, this is about 1,500 square foot, this is 600 square foot.
Frank, did you suggest last time that you wanted some of that in the middle, not just
Well,
on-
I guess in looking at part of the idea of keeping that, we'll call it a corridor, the area between the house and the riverfront is a way for animals, as habitat, and to move back and forth. And when you opened it up, cleared it out as this has been improved, it doesn't leave a lot of extra cover. It's not just a lawn with no trees. Certainly, there's a lot of trees.
That's correct.
And it's sort of a rough terrain. It's not a finished
That's correct.
terrain by any, but I'm just wondering if there's some additional, whether it's grasses or some sort of planting that would enhance that a little bit more.
Are you talking about larger square footage, or are you talking about a different?
Or dispersed,
Vast area of-
somehow dispersed, or make it so that, especially upland, deer will move through that
Correct.
area, but
Correct.
maybe fox, other smaller animals might not be inclined to do that as much. And I'm not
Correct.
an expert on that, but,
If the area itself is mowed regularly, even right along this area, is allowed to grow in some amount, that will certainly provide.
and that creates other problems. I mean, then we have deer tick and all that sort of stuff. So there's, but I'm just wondering.
Plenty of food for the deer ticks.
But if there's any way to do just a little bit more with that, I appreciate these two areas creating extra cover or habitat, and they're double the size or triple the size of the garage. But I think part of our concern was how this got developed, and that it's a little bit outside of what would be permitted. Am I right?
Right, yeah, we, notice of intent, they submitted a site plan, but then they were asked to do a landscape plan afterwards. This is the one that was approved, and this has some of the same areas that you've replanted, but there's a whole area of native revegetation that they call for. And that's...
Who's they?
This plan was approved by us as the landscape plan by the commission.
This is a larger version of this one.
No. Is it? Oh, it is,
Yeah.
okay.
It is, yeah, that's the plan of record.
Right. It wasn't the site plan, so the dog pen kind of gets snuck in on the landscape plan. It wasn't part of the site plan.
This is the reference plan.
I get it.
But anyways, it shows up, this is, whatever that means, I wasn't around, so I don't know what native revegetation seems to mean.
That would be my
Don't do
inclination.
anything or plant it.
It doesn't appear, though, that there's any, if there's any quantities or anything.
Yeah, it's pretty vague.
It's vague, but there was stuff.
But we're trying to get somewhere with this, I guess is my point, and we got a lot of things to do tonight. So,
Well, in terms of, the one question I guess I would ask is if we took and dispersed some of these in the inner riparian, so someplace in that 0 to 100, right, which is where we really put all of this. In the inner riparian, if we disperse these, is that enough to really provide corridor by itself, other than the land itself, some of the vegetation is there? And if we're let to grow a little bit more along the edges, would that maybe?
that's what I'm wondering.
Or the
I mean, I'm not the expert on that, and I'm also not a person that, these things will grow, and so if it's a function of cost, to have smaller plants but dispersed around that will eventually develop, I think you can understand what I'm asking for.
I'm not a wildlife specialist. My thinking was that the real wildlife that you're designing for are birds as opposed to mammals, or, there's no real, you've got deer and you've got fox. They don't use this kind of cover. This is cover for birds, where you want large stands where they're protected. But I'm not a wildlife.
You gotta stick to the law, right?
All right, I'm not a wildlife specialist, but.
Well, I think allowing that area, and I appreciate what the owner wants to have, they want some good view of the marsh and all that, but I think there's somewhere that there could be some plantings that are low but still create a cover. And then we close this, we do the conditions.
I'm sorry, Frank, if part of if a condition were not to have that little bit of driveway that we need to access the garage to be something impervious like the pavers, then we are really reducing the amount of impervious that is being proposed to only 612. So now that 2,100 worth of 1,500 plus 600 is going to be almost 3.5 to 1.
Yeah.
So right now, what you see right there with that one condition is already almost 3.5 to 1.
But it's a big area, Carmen, and we're talking about two small areas, and I don't think we've got a couple of other issues that are on this piece of property, and now you're in front of us. So I think it's the time to get that sorted out.
Dispersing the vegetation. So Mr. Smith has no problem if you want to condition this by saying in lieu of two specific areas that you disperse the same quantity of plants throughout the
If we find that that's a reasonable, I don't know.
I want to know more about that.
What do you think?
Well, I think that's reasonable. I think one of the things to try to revegetate or require to revegetate this entire area densely would,
No.
in my opinion, would be adequate.
No, we're not asking.
No, and I don't think that's what we're
So I
saying.
guess that's where I'm talking big picture first. If we disperse this along the entirety of this and maybe sprinkle it, there'll have to be some openings and some gaps, I would sense. But
Sure.
you'll still have vegetation growing up there
Yeah.
in between them. So I guess I would propose that we disperse some of the woody species, some of the ferns. I know that there was a desire to have some ferns, so that's why those became very heavily prevalent in the plan. That would be an opportunity that would make some sense. Now, does it have to be a tremendous amount more square footage? I would hope not, just I would hope not.
No.
Because I do think we already have vegetation that will be there and is still valuable.
Yeah.
Even if it may not be.
And maybe these plantings, the way they are, function the best in terms of some density and cover for birds. All I'm wondering if in addition to that, there's some way to allow this to become a little bit more natural and still attain what the owners...
Sure. So we're perfectly fine with you closing the hearing and conditioning it with two conditions. One, the conversion of that portion of the driveway apron from impervious to pervious, and the dispersal of the same number of plants proposed within the inner 100-foot. And we're happy to consult with Pat prior to that work, so that there's agreement as to where these things are. It seems that would satisfy your concerns, Frank?
I think so. And then also that, once we get this put together, you're going to give this to somebody at DEP and hopefully get some sort of blessing.
Or not have it thrown back.
Well, you'll hear from them.
My experience is that DEP's got fewer people and far more important things to be concerned about.
Mine as well, so...
Yes. It will be filed with DEP, and they'll have the opportunity to review it.
Are we somewhere in the middle?
Seems that way.
Okay.
I'm all set. I'm
Okay.
fine, disperse your plants a little bit instead of so, and I'm happy.
Make your motion. Nobody
I'll
else
make
knows
a
how.
motion to close
With
with our conditions.
the
You
conditions we've just
understand what the
stipulated.
conditions will be anyways. Okay.
I can second.
All in favor? Oh, is there anybody else that wants to speak to that?
I double-checked it.
You're all bored to death? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Have you vote no?
Kevin?
Now we got to vote.
No, it's a vote.
All in favor? All right. Thanks.
Thank you.
That was...
Hey, Adam? This plan, the site plan is 151 Border.
This says 147.
When it was a larger parcel, which is an address, when they divided the lot, they changed the street numbers, so 147 is 159.
Okay.
That's why it took me 3 hours to go through all the subdivision plans.
Holy mackerel.
Just skim through it quickly. I sent it to me.
I just...
Thank you very much.
I want to support Pat on these.
Well,
Do what we're supposed to do.
I think we just need a Board of Health for the next one. If I remember right.
O'Brien at is it Kenilworth Street, septic system?
I think it was just the Board of Health.
Requested a continuance.
Oh,
Yeah, I think they haven't gotten it.
they haven't gotten approval
yet.
from Board of
Yep.
Health. Okay.
So just move it to the next meeting?
Yep.
Yeah, I make a motion, we continue O'Brien to December 2nd at, we're going to continue O'Brien, 19 Kenilworth, to December 2nd at 6:30.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so now it's Morrissey at 240 Clap Road, right?
Yep.
Okay. Bear with me for 1 second. On November 18th, 7 p.m. the Town Hall, Scituate Conservation Commission will hold a wetlands hearing under Chapter 131, Section 40 of the Massachusetts General Laws and Section 30700 Town of Scituate Code of Bylaws regarding the application of Shan Morrissey to construct a new single-family house and septic system on property located at 240 Clap Road, Scituate. Abutters and other interested parties are invited to attend.
Good evening. For the record, Gregory Morse, Morse Engineering, Shan Morrissey, the property owner and applicant, is with me. This is a notice of intent application for a new single-family home located at 240 Thomas Clap Road. The site plan here that we've submitted, Clap Road is to the bottom left of the plan. The property is serviced by a common driveway which comes up the bottom side of the plan here to where we're accessing the lot for a new single-family dwelling. The resources at the site, we had Brad Holmes, a professional wetland scientist, delineate this on August 26th. He delineated a bordering vegetated wetland in this location. Contained within that wetland resource is a certified vernal pool. He delineated the limits of that certified vernal pool. And off of those resources, we have the 50-foot setback to the BVW, the 100-foot setback. We are showing the 100-foot setback to the vernal pool as well. The proposed house you'll see is in this location here. The septic is in the front yard outside of the 100-foot wetland buffer zone. We've shown our limit of work encompassing the house. We're working up to within 55 feet from the BVW. The roof areas here, we're proposing subsurface dry well systems. We have a rain garden or a shallow depression out in the front of the property to collect stormwater. The site as it currently exists, the majority of this is lightly wooded, or it was cleared at one point, it was field at one time. This property, I will also add resource area. It's located within endangered species habitat priority and estimated. We have submitted to the NHESP program. We're awaiting their review on the project. They have provided no comments to date. DEP has not yet issued a file number. We have not received DEP's comments yet to date on the project. I'd turn it over to Pat. I understand there might be a question about the wetland delineation.
Yeah, there's a couple of things. We have a 125-foot buffer off of the vernal pool, so, and it looks like some of the work that's proposed would be in the 125. Also, Greg, do you know if he's done the DEP data forms or a narrative on the wetlands?
I can get you a copy of that.
Okay,
Sure.
all right, that would be, it would
Who
probably...
did the wetlands?
Brad Holmes?
Okay.
Yeah. You know, we'd have to have somebody verify it, whether there's a vernal pool in place. We want to see where the limit of the vernal pool is within the bordering vegetated wetland and do the measurements off of that. Greg, did it trigger stormwater?
It will trigger a stormwater review as part of it. So I can provide a review consultant with calculations on that, absolutely.
Do we have to get two separate people for that, or is there one person that can do both, or,
For the stormwater?
and the wetlands? Are we gonna need a wetlands person to review that?
Yeah, when it's a vernal pool and,
Right.
you know, and there may even be a question of how large of a percentage of the lot needs to be upland and wetlands,
Okay.
so.
But we don't have it's not a, we're gonna need an engineer for the wetlands, I mean, for the stormwater,
Yeah.
and then a environmental consultant for the wetlands.
I mean, if we get all the narrative and DEP data forms, we'd at least have something to look at at that point. Like, I went out there today and it's flagged, but there's no narrative, what type of plants, whether it was soils taken and that kind of stuff. If it turns out that comes in and it's pretty clear, maybe we wouldn't need to.
Okay.
A lot of times for septics we don't, but usually for single-family homes if there's
We
a
do.
complicated wetline. we
Right.
do, so.
All right.
I can have Brad submit that. And the 125-foot, that's, I can make a revision to the plan and accommodate that.
How are you coming in again? 'Cause
Sure, so this is a common driveway. The last page of the notice of intent
Yeah, I
includes a
have
copy of the assessor's map. There's a common driveway access up here. This is how Shan currently accesses her house. There's another house beyond it in the woods. That property is...
Okay, so they come in this, I'm looking
coming-
at this here.
Sorry,
No,
no.
That's the driveway,
That's
and I'm
technically
at
the frontage,
that,
this
that's
is the
there.
easement. Yeah.
Okay,
Yep.
all right, that's all. I wanted to make
Thank you
sure.
for clearing that up.
Thank you. Yeah. That's just land that goes with it. Okay,
All right.
that's
Richard?
good.
I want that other information, so when we get that, I'll have a much better idea.
Lisa? Anybody in the audience that wants to speak to that?
It's 2 acres.
Anything else, Pat?
Besides Uncle
No, I
Lee.
think that's it.
How far out do we want to continue it to the next meeting, or do you think you're going to need a few weeks?
How soon are review engineers available, do you think?
Or you want to have them for the next meeting?
How long are they taking?
I would say 2 weeks we could do something.
Yeah, that's fine.
Can we do that?
Okay.
Anybody else? No? Good.
I make a motion to continue Morrissey till December 2nd at 6:40.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank
very
you.
much.
Thank you. Jerry is a 6:40.
Do you want to do the Town of Scituate DPW
Yeah.
next? Okay. Town of Scituate DPW 68, so this is amendment. Pat? This is amending a set of orders?
Yes, this is an amendment.
On November 18th, 2015, at 7:30 PM, the Town Hall, the Scituate Conservation Commission will hold a wetlands hearing under Chapter 131, Section 40 of the Massachusetts General Laws, and Section 30700, Town of Scituate Code of Bylaws, to amend the order conditions issued under DEP file number 68-2529 regarding the Town of Scituate DPW's removal of storm overwash along Central Ave, Cliff Road, and Beachway, Humrock. Abutters and other interested parties are invited to attend. Good evening.
Good evening. First of all, thank you for all the hard work the board has done and everybody's done in conjunction with this. It is appreciated that we will finally have, hopefully, some closure in this on most of the items. Pat, do you want me to just talk a little bit, or do you want to?
Well, we met with the selectmen last night because we wanted to run it by the selectmen and selectmen.
I heard you had a brief conversation.
Yes, a brief hour-and-a-half conversation.
Yes. I watched
Kind of went
it.
through the whole process of how it started. It came from the residents, some of their concerns. So we tried to develop an order of conditions that protected the salt marsh, but also addressed some of the flooding concerns of the neighbors. So we had an original order, and it looked like we needed to amend it. There's language in there that really can't be followed. Much of what we talked about with the residents is still in place, and some of the stuff we talked about is going to be tried as a pilot project this year, and I think the town administrator and the board of selectmen say, if that works, we can continue it. So it's steps in the right direction. We don't know how well everything is going to work, but I don't know if you want to talk about the engineering part or the storm cleanup part from your department.
There were basically 4 items that were just differential from the policy that we have with the selectmen, and we went over them in the meeting, if anybody did see the meeting, and I think we came out with a pretty good conclusion that we could do a pilot program or come up with something to that effect that might work out that's beneficial to everybody.
Okay.
And that had to do with the piles and making some inlets, in the piles, and do the best you can, basically, is what it came down to.
One of the things that came up was across the street, on the drainage side, on the marsh side, some of those paper streets that were going to be used for drainage are filled in with stones now. So Kevin and his crew are going to go out and we're going to walk it early next week and see if we can at least get that part trenched. So if, Central Ave floods, it'll have a place to go. With at least 3 locations. But if it turns out the storms are worse and there's more flooding, we may need to do more and find out suitable spots. So that was one of the things that we talked about last night.
Can you just review, for anybody who didn't see or didn't hear last night, the limits of where you're talking about? How far south do you come? I understand what Cliff Road is.
I thought everybody always watched the selectmen's meeting with
understand
intent,
that
or at least DVR'd it.
Babysitting my 5-month-old grandson, he monopolized my time.
Do you have the exact
I
addresses?
believe it's from C Street to Cliff Road, which is at the base of the hill, and the last private way that you reach on Central Ave. If I have a house number for you.
Going from C Street, really?
No.
No, was it Barat?
That's the...
Barat would
Wait,
make
that's
sense.
where-
Barat would make sense.
I thought it was Barat.
It was Seaview?
That part hasn't changed from the original.
No, Seaview.
Seaview.
Okay.
Okay.
We did it a while ago, so that's all right.
And that's where we thought we may be able to enter as another location to get out to the beach, which is private, actually, that roadway.
So where have you drawn the conclusion to enter on the beach?
We have come up with no conclusion to do on the beach. What we'll do is we'll work with residents. Actually, we went down today and we saw only 2 areas probably where we would be able to enter the beach with the equipment, with the size of equipment we'll have working down there. One is right at Seaview and the other is right at your house, probably right in between there.
What address is that?
And it's based on the size of equipment.
242.
242.
Able to fit
And
between.
240.
And we would want to bring the contractor out prior and see if they could physically get the equipment, and then we would have to still go through the same liability process and easement process and everything else. But as the pilot program, it'd be kind of a temporary easement unless it works out in the future.
And I think that was the only thing that was the delay, to make sure, one, it worked for the town, and one, it worked, and it worked with the path water, and it solved the problem, or it
And-
helped alleviate the problem.
And the selectmen made it very clear that we'd be placing the material out there in stacking it up, not spreading it on the beach. That would be spread by others or by the natural wave course.
Are your contractors on board with this?
We're paying them. They have to be, or we'll get new contractors.
Okay. And I do not mean this as criticism, but there have been times when they haven't done what we knew, even in the old program.
No, and that happens on occasion.
Yep.
They hire people. We have to go with the low bidder. We are a municipality. We go out to bid on it. We did go out to bid on it. The company that'll be doing it is G. Lopes. They're the low bidder. They've done it before in the past, usually under Southern Ready Mix. There's been 2 main contractors that do it. One had been Southern Ready Mix / G. Lopes, and the other one was PA Landers. I think last year we had PA Landers. The year before we had Southern Ready Mix. So Southern Ready Mix and G. Lopes have sold out to each other, so it's G. Lopes now that'll be doing the work, and they're the low bidder.
We have a meeting set up with them next week, too, to sit down with the contractors and to go through the order of conditions and to tell them, what we expect as far as the marsh side and the resident sides.
Is there a way that we could get these companies to sign off as an acceptance of what the order of conditions are and to share that information? Because what I experienced last year in talking with them, and it was a good 6 different people, and they didn't know, and they said they hadn't been directed. I'm not saying what they're saying was completely true, or maybe it was their perception, but at least if there was something in writing that they read it, signed it, then if they did not follow through with what they were supposed to be doing, then there was,
Well, we're going to be pretty strict with them as far as this goes. We're going to have a meeting with probably one of the owners and one of their area managers, and just say if they do not stick to it, we'll find somebody else to do the work, and they will not be allowed to bid it again. And it's a significant amount of work, and we spend a lot of money on that. So I think you're not going to get them to sign any liability, that they will take any liability for that, but we can impact them financially by saying we're going to void the contract.
well, actually, I wasn't looking at the liability. I was looking at more of the understanding to be on the same page.
Yep.
At least if the owner just said, we would like you to understand, so this is what you're relaying to.
We'll have the talk with the owner, and hopefully,
Yeah.
we make that, our point perfectly clear, what we expect and what we do expect. The biggest problem we do have is occasionally we were working some long hours this past winter out there, and they were shifting different operators in and out there. So they might have pulled a guy from somewhere else. The other guy might have just said, I'm all done, who normally did it. I'm going home, I'm going to sleep for a while. And they put somebody else in the cab. So that's where we have problems, is they switch people in and out. We don't really have a lot of control on it. We may have the 5 operators that are working that area, they might understand everything perfectly, and then one guy's sick, or one guy goes home, or whatever, somebody else hops in, first thing he does is he swings over and dumps in the marsh. And we're gonna take care of that, hopefully, with our pre-meeting, and they should have a copy of the conditions in the equipment when they do the work.
That sounds like a
I can't promise they're going to read it, but we'll have it there with them, at least.
Right.
And we'll make that clear to the owner of the company.
I think that's a step in the right direction. And
Yeah.
could they not fill their dump trucks on the marsh?
Let's hope not.
Okay, good.
Let's hope not.
Police came up last night, too, that you may need to find your septic plan and all that so that they know where it's located, so that if they use your...
It's under my seawall.
Oh, so you could drive out to it and you wouldn't be
It's
impacted?
protected by the seawall. If my seawall goes, my septic goes.
Because that was a concern. They didn't want to incur liability by
Oh, yeah.
running over.
Nor would I. And then the Warrens used to be near us, but then now theirs is on the other side of their double lot with a tight tank.
We'll just have town council write something up in accordance for easements, and anybody else who does want to give an easement or will gladly take a look at it.
That's right.
Looking down there, it looked pretty tight, though, to get some of the equipment in. The only two areas we did see were those two areas we brought up. And we were out there this afternoon looking at it.
Yeah. I figure it's pretty wide if they can't get through there.
I think they could get through there, but there are a couple other areas where the decks are built out. I'd just be afraid they'd rip off a deck, or rip off a portion of a deck.
There was also talk about allowing water to get beyond the houses out into Central and not getting dammed up all along there. And there's another pilot plan.
One of the things we talked about is doing a pilot where we would be able to possibly dig some trenches in there or leave something open. One of the things we're going to talk about when we have the little pre-construction meeting is possibly getting out there right away and digging some trenches out into the marsh that are shown on the marsh side that would alleviate the water. Our fear is if we put too many trenches in between the houses, that we're going to lose the road quickly. And we want an access for that water to get out there, and that's one of the things we're going to look at.
Okay. So then the existing paper streets will all be trenched and cleaned out?
What we're going to do is we're going to catch up with Pat, and we're going to have a site walk out there and make a decision, I'd like to say an intelligent decision on where we would put them, where the lowest sections of the road are, and what would be best for everybody. We don't want to run one down a paper street that's going to impact anybody.
Because there's two very active paper streets that do the job if they're not backfilled. And matter of fact, the 3 times the water came over a week ago, I went down and I took pictures for Pat from the north and from the south just to try to get an idea, because I'm not an engineer, but I could visibly watch how it would come down, how the water would come down and go through, or the water would come from the south and go in, and that the major houses obviously that must have a lower elevation of where it was coming through.
Okay, well, hopefully we get them in the right locations. But as always...
Do they get flagged or anything? I mean, before the storms, is there an actual sort of way to get some markers or posts or anything so they know?
Where the trenches are?
Well, yeah.
Streets are-
I know it's fairly obvious, but
No, it's not.
do we start to lose
Well,
those?
not in the middle of the storm like last winter, you could barely see the houses.
It's
Well,
not obvious if it's
that's
snowing.
what I'm saying. We're not going to put a little trench out there. We're going to put a good-sized trench.
No, but I
in
mean, is it possible to somehow actually get some demarcation in a few of these places so that the guys do know where they're supposed to go? Some painted posts or some kind
Any kind
of...
of
The
light
scenario that-
reflectors or?
The scenario that I know, I'm
Buoys
not
maybe, I don't know.
in this area, I'm a little south of the area myself, but I know that if it's snowing, if you're having a snowstorm and we're having water issues, frequently you cannot, and I'm sure that the contractors can't see any breaks in anything. And so I
Right.
think what Frank is saying is some demarcation where that's sticking up above the snow where they can say, okay, that's where I got to put it. That's where I got to
Well, we can look into that. We have little ways of marking where the hydrants are, so we can tell where the hydrants are off
That's fine.
telephone poles. So
Like the poles with
we
the
could probably have a tie with a reflector or something to that
exactly.
effect. You know, hopefully.
It does get confusing. I mean, you're out there in a storm, and the next thing you know, you just hope that you're on the right side of
In
the
one of these
telephone
storms
poles.
last year, I was driving on Hadley Road, and I didn't even know where I was.
I know,
was completely
I know.
lost.
And I'm
It
sure
gets
it's true
bad.
on Turner Road,
Yep,
and
yep,
we're not the only
everywhere,
place
yeah.
up there, that's right.
So it can happen.
Okay.
Frank, one other thing that came up was that in the past, people have asked that the piles of stones in front of their house could remain, and it gets tricky, like some want it and some don't, and I think last night with the selectmen, we were talking about, maybe giving it a try where, I guess if people identify that they want to keep it, how did that discussion go?
By December 1st.
We'll get to the audience in a minute.
Yeah, that came up, we had to know, I think, by December 1st, if people wanted to, if they wanted the stuff removed, when the time came, if we did do a removal. And that's only if it's declared by the selectman and town administrator to do a full cleanup.
Right, that would be based on the category of storm.
That'd be based on the category of storm, if we go into emergency conditions, and that's decided, because that call falls on them if they want, if that's the case. If there's not much, it's probably not going to happen, but if we have extenuating circumstances like we did this past year, we may have another program like we did this past season of cleaning up in front of the houses.
Now, where, I know when you have to clear the road due to the emergency, you're going to put the material on the side of the road, and after the emergency over, then you're going to be returning it to the beach?
Not necessarily.
So you're going to pile it up along the side of the road again?
We're going to pile it up on the side of the road and make some notches out there at that point.
For the water to get through.
And when you make a determination where to pile it, it's has a different impact if a house is on piles versus a house on foundation. Because what happened last year is all the houses that had foundations, you sent that water back into people's houses.
I have pictures.
And it did damage to people's houses.
We addressed that last night.
Okay, but I didn't know that. I mean,
That's what I think the notches were for.
Right.
If I was following the meeting.
That's what the notches were for. It was going to be a pilot program to see how that worked and if that helped anything out.
Okay, but wouldn't it just be easier just not to pile it where it's going to impact? Because there are very few houses that are actually on foundations, that if you just didn't put it in front of a house with a foundation, a house with piles, it'll just go through. And then again, if you knew where the year-round residents were versus summer residents, if they put out a light or some kind of thing to distinguish it or have a list.
That wasn't brought up last night or as part of the option, and that's different from the policy that we have. As a DPW, we follow the policy that's been approved by the selectmen on to what extent we do the cleanup. And that's kind of what we're going over now, is that we'd be digging the trenches out as part of the conditions that was put forward by this committee.
Okay. May I make another request?
Sure.
Could you not dump material in people's driveways after they've paid to have it removed? Do you know what it's like to spend $700 to have your driveway cleared out, and then you come home and your driveway is filled? Is that a reasonable request?
No. As been said in the past, we will do everything we can to not fill people's driveways in or anything to that effect. Hopefully, we won't have a summer or a winter like we did last year, and we don't have the amount of material it overwashes.
When you fill somebody's driveway, you prevent them from going home. Because you can't park on the street. So you end up incurring the cost of a hotel room.
I understand where you are, and it's a tough situation. Our main priority is, under these circumstances, to open the road up so that we can get emergency vehicles in and out.
You're right. But if a person can't get home, when there's all these other places where you could dump material, when somebody spends money to plow their driveway, I don't think it's too much to ask for you not to fill it back in.
Are we talking about filling in a complete driveway with stone, or are we talking about windrows at the end of the road when they plow the road, Lisa?
I'm talking about you have your driveway plowed out and you come back and you have this much material in your entire driveway because it was an open space for them to drop materials, and now you can't get back in. And depending on what time you come back, you either stay in a hotel and then you have to call the person and pay to have them remove it again.
But again, I mean, we do snow removal as well, and it's not rocks.
This isn't snow.
But
Snow you can drive over.
But when when the town's plowing all around town, they're moving snow out of the roads, and it goes into everybody's driveway, and, people have to get out. Now, I realize it's different when it's mixed with cobble and all that sort of thing. I think it's reasonable to not have your whole driveway filled with material. I understand that. But on the same token, if they're plowing or trying to keep the road clear, and there's a windrow that winds up at the end of the driveway, what you're saying is they should go back and, I'm just trying to understand.
Okay, I'll give you another example. So they're plowing the road and they dump it in your driveway. And then the emergency is over, and then they come back on a sunny day and they continue to dump it in your driveway.
Okay, so, well, obviously they shouldn't be dumping material into people's driveway to fill it, and I don't know.
But, and I understand why, because places that haven't been plowed are higher and higher and higher. However, there has to be a happy medium between the town doing their job, protecting the environment, and not incurring unnecessary costs to homeowners.
Okay. Anybody want to?
I mean, what I would say is, obviously, I think we all experienced a very difficult winter last winter. So there were a lot of situations that occurred that we're trying to remedy this year with these pilots. I'm sure when we can meet with contractors, I mean, I don't see when we're going over these order of conditions, just to say that this has been brought up in the past and make every reasonable effort not to have that happen again. I mean, again, I don't know how much control we have of every single contractor that's out there with the different drivers changing, but if we bring it to light that it was an issue last year, hopefully it's something that they can remedy and have at the top of their minds when they're out there plowing. I mean, I certainly understand what you're saying.
We spent $3,000 plowing out our driveway last winter.
Well, I think a lot of people spent...
It did, yes.
Okay.
A lot of people did for snow, too.
But it wasn't from an act of God dropping it in the driveway. That's all.
Look through the members, open this up to the audience, and again, we got a lot of meetings still ahead of us, but...
Could we just ask about keeping the storm drains clean?
That's one of our priorities, try to keep them clean. They fill up awful quick once they go underwater and get hit with a lot of that rubble.
But is that going to be part of the plan to flag them so you know where the locations are? Because last year, they were just piling cobble on top of them.
One of the issues is we run out of space there. I mean, when I know the highway superintendent isn't planning to fill your driveway so that you have to spend $3,000. They run out of space where they can put stuff and keeping the road open. One of the main problems we have with the catch basins is that they fill in. Even if you know where they are, it's kind of impossible once they go underwater and fill with rock to get cleaned up in any amount of time. And they just can't handle the amount of storm surcharge that we're receiving.
Well, I think that you guys probably would have a better time. Like last year, at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, 12 o'clock in the afternoon, the guys stopped and went home because they ran out of room at the bottom of Fourth Cliff. But I think with more easements where you have more access points to the beach, that problem will probably get rectified.
Let's hope so.
Because there were people stranded that emergency vehicles couldn't get to them because the roads weren't clear.
Can I just, before we jump to another one, the point of the storm drains or some cleanup, I mean, typically there's a couple of phases of a storm. There's one where you're just trying to keep the roads open, and then at some point, typically within a day or so, the town's back, pushing back corners, opening up drains, clearing out hydrants. It's not usually done all during the storm. There's usually a phase to this. During the storm, when there's a lot of weather and all
What
that.
happens a lot, Frank, is as the tidal surge comes over, we may lose that road for 2 or 3 tide cycles completely, because we can't do anything as the surcharge goes up, the water doesn't go down. We have to wait till the water goes down, then we bring the contractors in after it subsides and start digging out the road, just to open up the Fourth Cliff section.
But there's usually, I guess my point again,
There is,
I
yeah.
understand that
Yep.
when it's flooded, there's not much you're going to be able to do. You can't physically work in it when there's 3 or 4 feet of water. You don't want to lose a piece of equipment or a person's life.
Right.
So, but as soon as you can do that, you're going to get the road somewhat passable so that people can get to Fourth Cliff or wherever they need to get to. And then, sort of after the initial opening of the road, then there's usually a process of pushing back, clearing out drains, doing all that. It sort of happens, it doesn't happen all at once.
But that didn't happen.
Right.
And the hydrants weren't dug out.
Right.
And the reason being is because you have these massive piles of cobble along the road that never get removed. So that just falls back into the road first before, and then you have new stuff on top of it. So if it was not along the side of the roads for the majority of the winter, the materials would then at least have to come from the beach to get into the road instead of just falling back into the road.
But, so what you're saying is that after each storm, all that material should be removed?
Do you think you should just have 15-foot piles on the side of the road?
I don't know, I'm thinking about snow as well, all around town, and it doesn't all get removed. You know, they push it back on the sides of the road as best they can, but...
Right, and if I can step in, Frank, this past year, it was all stacked up on the side of the road. We did have areas that were probably 14 or 15 feet in the air. It was a significant height, but we kept the road open so that we could get out to Fourth Cliff to the best of our ability. And then the selectmen, that's a policy change, not a policy change, but that's part of the policy, is the selectmen will vote on that. If they are going to take all that material out and bring it out back to the other side of Fourth Cliff on the beach side. And they waited until the end of the season, hopefully as far as we could, while we're still eligible for FEMA reimbursement, and then removed all that material.
Well, and we also had a special permit at that time to do it.
And we also had a special permit. We had to get a special
And
permit.
I realize
from the
there's a
DEP.
difference because snow eventually is going to melt, the rocks are still going to be there.
Yep.
Okay.
And who did you get the special permit from to remove?
Marty
Was it you?
Sorenberg. Marty Sorenberg.
I don't know who that is.
He's the head of the DEP. He came out with the governor.
Okay,
And that's how we got the approval to put it out there.
okay, but the town can put the material back on the beach, and then it wouldn't have to be stacked, like, clear the roads in the emergency. Yes, it gets on the side, but then once the emergency's over, the trucks can then come along the side of the road, drag it, at least to do it, I know there are people that want it to be left behind.
Yep.
If you were to do this through February, there's still going to be materials that are going to come through that can be stacked on people's properties to be able to use in the spring when they return.
No, and I understand that and agree with you, Lisa, but that's the selectmen make that decision. The DPW does not make that decision.
Well, I just think if it saves the town money, it saves the taxpayers money, because if you're not having the same material keep falling in, plus new material, that's that many more man-hours to keep plowing, and homeowners that can't get out. I mean, it just, to me, seems like it would make more sense to put it back, and you guys would be going up and down the road less. It wouldn't cost as much money, and everybody would then be happy. No?
Fair enough. We follow the policy is what it is.
So what is the policy, Maura?
The policy is to clear the road right now for emergency purposes. And what we're doing today, Lisa, tonight, is trying to work through a pilot system so that we can put together maybe a policy that can be more long-standing. So that's why we're calling it a pilot. We don't know. I mean, last year was a very trying winter for everybody, Lisa, not just for you in your pocket, but for everybody's pocket. And we need to ensure the safety of everybody at Humrock. But it's a difficult area, especially because of it being a designated barrier beach. So there are a lot of restrictions that we have to speak to, which you know, being on the Conservation Board. So I'd like us to move forward, and I think tonight was about moving forward with some of these pilot actions and making some remediations to what happened last year, and let's hope that they work and that we can build upon them and come up with a better policy that's within all these regulations.
Okay. What do you think? Can we open this up just a little bit? All right. Rosemary?
What I heard in terms of those who want to keep the cobble in their yards and not have the DPW touch it, what I heard last night was the town administrator say there would be one letter that would go out to the 90 or so homeowners asking, do you want it left in your yard or do you want it removed? They would have, she mentioned, until December 1st to respond. That was going to be the only notice, which sounds reasonable. If they chose to have it left there, whatever the decision was, it was for the whole season. They couldn't change their minds after a storm. That made sense. Couple that with, and this is my thinking, couple that with the idea to take a couple of easements and push some of it back on the beach. I think might alleviate a problem that I've seen, which is when people don't want to put it back on their own beaches and they hire someone to clear the driveway, much of it's leaving town, and it shouldn't.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's true, and it's...
Truckloads of it left.
It just, and you can't have someone out there overseeing that all the time. So I think if people respond to this letter and say, no, I don't want it, if that's the material that the DPW will take and push back onto the beach, that's where it belongs. I would assume that the people who want it left in their yards are going to come in the spring or whenever and push it back in front of their houses at their own expense.
Yes.
To me, that's all.
Is there a place, Kevin, if people are hiring someone to clear their driveway or yard, is there a place for their contractor to dump it?
Besides Musquashka Pond, I'd have to check with Pat besides the berm. I mean, it's wherever Pat designates the area. I believe it wouldn't be us.
It's not supposed to leave the beach.
No, I'm sorry, it was a poor joke. It was a poor joke, I'm sorry. I was trying to get Rich fired up.
It'll make it, don't worry, Rosemary, it'll make it back. It'll get back there.
It'll wash down.
Usually what happens is on the cliff section there, up by Cliff Road there, right at that entrance, is I believe the material could be placed in that location.
So there is some places for...
Provided Pat's okay with it and they do get at least a preliminary permit with Pat that they're doing the cleanup. I don't want to speak for Pat, but I'm sure he'd allow them to place it over there.
Okay. Yes, ma'am. And try to, your name and address we need.
Ackerblom, 228 Central. I have a couple things. I have pictures I want to show you so you can see some of the pictures. This has been happening not just this last year. We, every time the storm comes by, we're fine. It's after the storm when the road blocks up, we are on the ground level. We have to hurry and rent equipment to make the opening. You're saying you're gonna do the opening, great. But if you don't, we do flood. We have to run and get equipment really quick, and sometimes the equipment's not there. We had about $15,000 of damage last year. No insurance covered it because our homeowners wouldn't cover it, and it really wasn't a flood. And I wouldn't lie and say it was a flood from the storm. It was just because it was blocked in. Garage door, stairs gone, 8 inches all the way around my whole basement. Storm Scituate. If you make the openings and all that, that's great. But if you let people stockpile, which my neighbor to the north likes to have a stockpile, then you're going to redirect under her Stilts house, comes straight across to the river. You're going to redirect the water the whole season straight to my property. I have pictures of it when it is redirected. I'm okay for temporary, but a whole season, no. Because then when a storm comes and it's still that little narrow thing, it's going to rip at my property a direction that it normally doesn't go. So just saying to anyone you want to keep it, if you're next, you know, it was a foundation house next door to me, now it's a stilt house. Normally, the water stays on their property, goes across. You put piles there, let them keep it there. I've had redirected water the whole time now, not from nature, from man, at my property.
Okay.
And I'd like to share some pictures with you, just, I mean, I need it back, but just so you can see that the amount of stockpiling, and it's not just this year.
All right, why don't we just pass them around real quick, but we got to keep this...
I understand. But so...
I mean, what we're trying to do is deal...
I have an issue with that, the stockpiling, you know, like allowing people, if you're next to a stilt house, and the stilt house keeps it, and the ground level keeps it, I'm going to be asking for more flooding again.
Oh, versus 224.
So you have to be careful on that, allowing someone to do something that is going to definitely impact the neighbor. I want my neighbors to be able to use the fill, but in some cases, it's detrimental. I want them to be able to back in front of the houses if they'd like.
Okay. Yes, sir. I'm just going to work my way right across the room. And your name and address?
Bob Bracy, 180 North Central Avenue. I'm just trying to understand. You talked about two openings. This is Casey's and Seaview Avenue. Is that to move as they clear the streets, is to move into the beach at those points?
You know where he's talking about?
Is that or what?
There'd be two openings where we could dispose of material on the beach as much as we could. Is that the question?
Yes, but is it Mrs. Casey's property? Did you say you were going to let them use your property to go?
Yes, we drove down the street today, and we actually drove down it earlier, looking for locations that were wide enough to get heavy equipment through.
Seaview Avenue's one.
Seaview Ave in
One up
between...
at the crossroads.
At Cliff Road.
Okay.
And then the other one's at Mrs. Casey's property.
Okay, good, so there's three.
And if you have another one, or if you want to move the house over a little bit, we can get the equipment through there.
And now that's just going to be put on the beach horizontally?
It's just going to be put on the beach horizontally in a pile, and we're not going to spread it, unfortunately. We're going to stack it up.
The only other thing I have to say about, I think the letter's a good idea, but also if neighbors want to just put a placard on their house, red, that means don't clear it out, and don't, if it's green, you just leave the stuff there. I don't want anybody coming on my property and taking the sand. I need it. We don't have protection.
I think the way we're going to word the letter is, if you want it removed, reply to us. That way, we're not taking it off somebody's property.
So you're only going to respond to those who ask it to be removed?
Who ask it to be removed. That way, we're not making a mistake and taking it off your property. Okay. We find them, we see the signs, and thank you, they work well.
But what will
Give it to the
happen
woman.
to me
Give it to Sean. I don't know if they want to...
No, they saw the one.
says they want to keep it.
Okay.
Suddenly, that's not nature, that's redirected water the whole time at me. So basically, I'm going to be damaged.
We don't have it all worked out, but we're
Yeah.
starting to.
So if the ones that's south of me.
If your neighbor decides they don't want to remove, I can't take it off his property if he doesn't want it removed.
Okay. Don? You just got to, one at a time, and we just got to work through this fairly quickly. Go ahead.
If the people don't rebuild the berm, lesser and lesser storms come through, and then it doesn't take much for a storm to flood the street and damage everything. You gotta put the fill back in front of the houses.
Yeah, that's what we used to do.
That's probably what you, I don't know, maybe it's...
We used to be.
Right.
But you gotta keep that berm up. That berm is the height of the seawall that is down there. That established the height of the seawalls.
Right.
Was the height of the berm.
And that's by taking the material from the street and replacing it back on the beach.
Right, because now the grade in some places is 6 and 8 feet below that. The water just flows through in lesser storms.
Okay. Thank you. Anybody else? Yes, sir.
Chris Robbins, 10 Cliff Road. Last year you went through where River Way is, scraped it all up, spread it north along the beach, leveled it out. You're not going to do that this year?
No, that's where we're going to place the material and spread it out as much as we could, if that's the case where we get into. Let's hope not. Let's hope we don't have any.
Last year they were cut through for about 3 or 4 days, 2 feet from my deck, ripped off my telephone cable lines. Can they go up and go 90 degrees out to the beach? What beach way is? There's rocks.
We-
Management issue.
Yeah, that could be a management issue. We could maybe meet up with you beforehand and see that if we did do some damage, just to square it away.
And at some point, it'd be nice if someone cleaned up this metal, plastic bottles, trash, all in that rock that's spread out there. I don't know who does that.
We do.
Okay.
I'm trying to pick up as much as I can.
Sure.
Exactly right.
Right. The rest of us have.
Anybody else?
I agree with you.
Yes, sir.
Wayne Booker, 280 Central Ave. I was just thinking back on your idea of the trench, idea to allow water to go through. I think it would be helpful in some places, because I heard talk about your foundation. Me being on stilts, when I have a 17-foot wall, it still goes back into the stilts and causes damage. So something to alleviate that to go through is helpful. And also, as far as putting posts to mark these areas, I don't know if that would be work. Maybe it might be better just to go with, set addresses of houses. Because when you get out there, you can, water can be this deep and rocks can be this deep. And
Sure.
everything gets washed away. I've seen concrete move in it. So.
As we said, it's a pilot program. We're going to figure out what works and what doesn't work.
Okay.
So hopefully we get some,
Do you think it would be helpful, Kevin, if, I would be happy to share information with you via email, I see it on an ongoing basis. I will do my best to be as completely unbiased as possible, because I really would like to offer help, like pictures and stuff that I've shared with Pat, to let you know, geez, this seems to be working the way you hoped it had. This one appears to not, and then for you to...
It would definitely help, because you have to figure during some storms, we're not just in Humrock,
You're all
over the place.
Yeah.
And, usually by the end of the storm, I'm talking to myself, so...
I bet you are.
It usually works that way. So we huddle up afterwards, after the storm, a few days after the storm, after everybody's got some sleep, and we work out what worked, what didn't work, and where we took the impacts everywhere, throughout the whole coast.
Okay. So...
And
yeah.
Pat usually gets those to me. As soon as they come to you, I see them on my phone, pretty
because
much.
I have neighbors that will share things with me, and then I share them with him.
And we encourage that with people. They worked recently with Dave Ball. We had, just about a month ago, during that Monday holiday, we had a opening at Oceanside Drive, and he was sending that over to us from the neighbors immediately, and we were right out there that day fixing the hole and holding the wall up.
Good. We'll work as a team.
Yeah.
Is there a particular contact person? When someone wants to get that information back, do they just contact the DPW office? How does that...
A lot of times during the storms, phone calls help a lot, because if it's something we have to act on quick, we're not always checking email, we're out on the road. So I would say if it was during a storm, usually we have coverage in our office. If somebody contacts somebody, they could get a hold of somebody by the radio, and we could go out and check it immediately.
Okay.
Typical things people send into the DPW. We have a drop box they drop it into a lot too.
Okay. All right. Anybody else?
We don't have to vote on this, do we?
We do have to vote an amendment.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes, ma'am.
Am I correct?
Your name?
Rosemary Boyle, 254 Central Ave. Am I correct that the reason that DPW did not take these storm rocks and dump a pile in front of everybody's house on the beach is because it's a private beach and the town needs a waiver from the people to drive the trucks on the beach?
That'd be correct.
Would it not be easier to try to get that for at least a short part of North Humrock versus coming and having all these meetings with people's houses flooding, rocks inside? They did it years ago when I first moved into Scituate. After every storm, they had the yellow trucks. They would just put it into the trucks, drive up, and come down and dump some. They didn't spread it, they just dumped it right in front of everybody's seat. How many people could there be? There might be maybe 20 houses from the cliff down to maybe Lisa's house.
think 20 people would sign a waiver, at least.
I think it's 100 houses in the whole area that's covered.
With what came off of it, just put it back where it came from.
Anybody want to field that?
Well, she's right, it's an easement issue. And a lot of people, I mean, it took us, what, 12 months to get easements from 7 homes.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, it's a long process, so that's why we thought if we could identify a few areas, and we discussed that last night, we just thought it was unreasonable to go and ask every resident to sign an easement, because then it just bogs down the process. If we can identify 2 or 3 places, which Kevin and Sean and Pat are doing, Lisa's yard, at least we can make some forward progress with this. So that's typically what the challenge is.
Okay. All right.
Would it be helpful, seeing, you're gonna, if you find that even trying to access through our property in the Warrens, that you don't have enough space, I would be happy to ask 10 neighbors north, 10 neighbors south. Would that be helpful?
Well, let's get out there and we'll take a look at the area first.
Okay.
And yeah, I won't comment on that, but let's go out and take a look at it first, and we'll see what we can do.
right.
Because, yeah, we'll see. We can talk about that.
So if you, through the course of the winter, think, well, geez, maybe that's an option, I would be happy to go up and canvass up and down the street for you and give you the names, and if that would help.
And if you would be interested in canvassing, not to sell it, if we have easements in place, it makes us more eligible for grants in the future of easements over the whole area. I know we've talked about it in the past, but that's something we could talk about offline, too, for future
You have to remember,
grants.
it's not just easement for access.
No, it would be, you know, we could talk about potential grants for sand nourishment or beach nourishment or something to that effect.
Okay, so the difference is, just for clarification, it's not a seasonal storm easement like we're talking about for access. It's a permanent easement like you had emailed me about.
And still, I think this is just a pilot program, so it's a temporary easement. If it works out, the town would probably be looking for a permanent easement and cutting through, going back and forth. That was what the agreement was last night that was brought up, so. But I think it's all doable, and we'll see how it works out.
All right. So if we're all done discussing this, we want to vote to approve the amendment.
I make a motion.
You read it?
Yeah.
We don't know what it is.
Right, our amendments, a lot of these are DPW topics that don't fall under the Wetland Protection Act, so we don't have them as part of, an order of conditions. So the ones that are related to storm damage prevention, we have 3 changes.
Okay.
Okay, prior to the winter storm season, a meeting will be held to discuss the order of conditions with the contractors who could be called on to do this type of work. So each fall, we'll meet with them, and as many of them as we can meet with, we will tell them what is expected. As part of this, DPW is going to be supervising these people. It's not going to be a 24-hour thing, but they know that supervision for the contractors is important, as is educating them in the beginning. The storm overwash material is piled along the east side of Central, the house side of Central, immediately following a storm. The town shall excavate some notches or some small channels so that water doesn't get trapped and flood the houses. Let's see.
And that was part of the pilot program.
That's part of the pilot, right. So for this year, we'll see how that works out. And then the other one was, prior to the season, we'll be going out there this week to identify trenches on the opposite side of the street where the water can drain from Central into the marsh. And we have one area that's north of 270 Central, and then we're looking at the 2 paper roads that are right now filled with cobble. So if it looks like they're the low spots, we'll go in there before the season and drag out some of the material so maybe it can channel our way into the marsh. And those are really the only things that have to do with wetland protection.
So those are the changes under our order of conditions. Maybe there's other things that they're doing, but that's not our purview. Do you understand? Okay. right.
I make a motion, we accept those changes to
And
the orders.
Second?
I second it.
All in favor? Aye. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I know it's an ongoing
for the help.
process, and we appreciate the cooperation.
Very much.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sean?
Oh, yeah, get him out of here.
We're going to do an RDA for Greg Morse.
Thanks.
Want to do a quick bio break?
I gave them to you.
I know.
I just wish they had gone to this. You know? Both their areas.
That's right, it is definitely helpful.
Well, I'm hoping, let's hope we never get one like that. I mean, and I do understand. What's the sense that I quit if I can't get to my house?
But Central Ave is not the only one in town.
I know, that's the other thing. Oh, yeah.
If I ask 5,000 times, can you? If I say the same thing over and over,
I know.
why does she not recuse herself and sit on the other side of the table? That should have been the first thing.
Yeah, that's right. A lot of these have nothing to do with confines. And when I cut the channels and why would you people, at the Simon's meeting last night, go bend the areas, not mine. I have no control over this stuff. We only have a few things.
Cut the channels, see if they work, move on. That took like 5 seconds. How many more hundred do you have to go?
We've got a lot.
You're getting out till tomorrow.
Well, it's 10:09.
By like 9:10, I'm going to be drinking, so I'm going to be thinking of you while you're here at 11.
Ready to go?
Yes.
All right.
Go!
We gotta get out of here.
We hope it's tonight. Go, Peace.
She's a good helper.
That works. Okay.
What are you doing?
Greg, what is it? Nobody likes you, they're all leaving. Nobody likes you, they're all leaving.
On November 18th, 2015, during the 6:15 meeting of the Town Hall, Scituate Conservation Commission will act on the request of Tracy Barrow, right? I got the right one?
Yeah.
For determination of applicability of Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act and the Scituate Wetlands bylaws to repair a septic system on property located at 109
Shut the
Hill Road,
doors.
Scituate, Mass. Abutters and other interested parties are invited to attend.
For the record, Greg Morse Engineering. This is a septic system repair project at 109 Booth Hill Road. As you come in from Route 3A heading west, 109 Booth Hill is on the left-hand side. It's on the bottom of the plan here. Property line is shown in bold. It's an existing 4-bedroom, single-family home. The wetlands on the site in blue, we have a bordering vegetated wetland delineated by John Zimmer, South River Environmental. In red, I have the 50-foot buffer, and in green, the 100-foot buffer. The septic system right now is located in the front yard. It failed a Title V inspection. We're proposing to upgrade it with a Title V compliant system. I'm using the existing septic tank, but installing a new distribution box and new leaching chambers. The system is located 77.3 feet away from the BVW. We're keeping it in the front lawn area. There's no vegetation to come down as part of this project. I was kind of limited in my locations due to the existing water service to the left and the existing driveway to the right. We tried to keep it as far from the wetland as we can. Again, that distance 77.3 feet.
Greg, where is the current system? I'm sorry.
Right here in the front yard as well.
So you're basically in the same spot?
Same location, right
Okay,
next to it.
that's what thank you.
Penny?
No, gotta do it.
Lisa? Patrick?
I'd just say, Greg, with that slope, maybe he wants to do something more than a straw wattle. Maybe, something more significant, silt sock or something.
Where is this?
This is
Is this the gray cave?
I know where the house is, but where's the slope? What is it slope of?
the slope around like the side of the house.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we're not going to be doing any work over, all the work is in a real flat area on an established lawn.
Okay.
So there's not really much
It
potential
slopes
for
down, but
erosion
it's more, okay, if it's not near that sloped area, then.
I'm shocked.
Yeah, it's right out front. If anything, it's going to head more towards Booth Hill than...
When was this house built?
Anybody in the audience? Okay.
How are we getting a 50-foot like that?
You're up, Penny.
I'm all set. Oh, I'll make a motion for -3.
Second.
All in favor?
Sorry.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. You want to do Jericho next, or do you want
We
to?
get 3 from Sean with DPW.
All right. So we're doing Jericho Road?
Which one you got?
That's what I thought.
Captain Pierce?
Captain Pierce, I got you. On November 18th, 2015, during the 6:15 meeting of the Town Hall, Scituate Conservation Commission will act on the request of the Town of Scituate DPW for an after-the-fact determination
After the fact.
Which one you doing?
of the Wetlands Protection Act and the Scituate Wetlands bylaws to install memorial benches on property located on Jericho Road, Scituate.
Okay, we'll do that one.
Curveball
Sorry.
from the chairman.
That's okay.
Does the order really matter?
I was actually trying to pull them all together. I didn't realize that wasn't after the fact when there's... Okay.
Yeah, they were already.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. Sean McCarthy, Scituate DPW Engineering. This is the memorial bench policy that was adopted back in 2010 by the selectmen. There was a policy put in place for residents to locate memorial benches for family members that have passed on, with markings, names, as well as, memorial memories within them. Locations throughout town were established in the policy. It was our understanding that they were reviewed at that time with the agent. I wasn't here in 2010 during the policy, but they were all located at the rear of the sidewalk. There's a list of about 20 locations throughout town that a bench could be located. These 5 happen to be located on Jericho Road, just at the rear of the existing sidewalk along Jericho. So we didn't think that, or when these locations were picked originally when the policy was enacted, that there was no need for the filing. I guess the commission feels that now that they're up, we do an after-the-fact filing for the location of these 5 benches.
It never came before the commission originally.
Killjoy.
I know, no. What happened was, it's actually in a beach, and anybody else wants to put something in a beach, they would certainly be filing.
I understand.
And this was an after the fact, so they're doing the right thing, and we're happy about it.
Somebody did come to Concom, because I can remember this being brought up.
There
about
was a public
benches.
meeting.
And there was a question of whether that was private or public, that beach. So it was aired.
There's a private resident that had one done. I
Yes.
think that might be the one.
Okay, that's the one. But there was some talk on these, but then it kind of just disappeared.
Right. Yeah, I think in the future we'd want to know the location, and we'd probably want to get some kind of mitigation if you're taking sand and beach grass away. At least some replanting of beach grass.
It usually is enhancing, I think. I know all the ones down mine about it.
Not everybody feels that way. There's several complaints have come into my office, so.
Well, when you get older and you want to sit and look out at the harbor, I think they'll open.
I've heard a lot of people that now use the Jericho sidewalk to walk to the lighthouse.
That's right.
Stop
they
and
have
take a
nice
break on them.
stopping spot.
I did hear that, but
Is there any reason to take them out?
Absolutely not.
Looking at me? Thinking maybe some beach grass planting, but.
no.
This is good. No,
I don't think they impacted anything that was...
Right.
You don't know what, they're enhancing that.
Right, and there was a public meeting with the selectmen, so it did go through the public process, but there are wetland issues, and I'm glad Sean came.
Yes, thank you for filing.
Is there anybody in the audience that would like to speak to this issue? They're all gone.
Oh, good.
You're lucky you didn't put any in You're lucky you didn't put any in Humrock, that's all I can say.
Actually, we could use, never mind. I second her motion.
It just wash away.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sean.
Next.
You're welcome. I feel so much better about that.
There actually is a location in Humrock on the list.
Thumbs up. It's probably the center of town.
On November 18th, during the 6:15 meeting of the Town Hall, Situate Conservation Commission will act on the request of the Town of Scituate DPW for determination of applicability of the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act and the Scituate Wetlands Bylaws to clear an existing 20-foot wide path between well 22 and well 19 on property located at 66 Old Forge Road, Scituate, abutters and other interested Scituate, and to construct a 25 by 40-foot storage building on property located...
Oh, you're going to do
This guy was a
both at
separate.
once?
Oh.
Don't have to read half the stuff. Property located at 68 Captain Pearson Road. Butters and other interested parties are invited to attend.
But they are two different hearings.
They are.
They had two different filings. The path clearing for the water department, this well is located across from Town Hall on 3A. It connects with the well that's located on Old Forge, on the backside loop of that. There is a corridor where the water main connects those two stations, as well as communication lines to both stations. This past winter, some of the old deadwood had fallen across the path in several locations. The trees that did fall are too big to be moved by hand. So they want to be able to use the water department's backhoe, chainsaw the pieces, and be able to push them out of the way so that that path remains clear. They do walk that. They do have handholds for electric communications that sometimes have difficulties or need maintenance, as well as a main and components to the water system in that path as well.
Sure.
I think would be a good idea at this time to ask for a maintenance plan on this, so they don't have to come back every time we have a storm to go out there and clear.
Yeah, was there one in the past, Sean? Do you know if there was a long-term one?
Not that I found the original, they connected those two wells with that main as an improvement in '07, I believe, or '01, I'm sorry.
So that was probably in order of conditions.
Right.
That's like 14 years ago, though, but you should have a maintenance where you can...
So you don't have to come back every time.
Yeah,
Agreed.
Can we add that to this?
yes, I would hope so,
Okay.
With a negative, with the
Yeah.
addition of, I see.
yeah.
So we need to determine the maintenance plan, write some parameters?
No,
Just maintenance. I
we
mean,
don't
not
have to
Keep
give them a
that
negative
corridor open.
recommendation.
Just to keep the
On this one,
corridor.
I mean, maybe the old order has conditions in place already, and we could just, vote to amend it and approve it for the future. But for this one, I think you could do
A
a
negative determination,
Right.
and hopefully we'll figure out a way to add some maintenance, so that ongoing,
Right.
you don't have to
Keeping
file
that
for this
clear.
sort of thing. Yeah,
Right.
makes sense to me.
Because this one, I mean, there actually could be a couple of conditions that go with this, and
Yeah.
I could continue. And one of them is, right at the at Chief Justice Cushion end, there's a stream right there. Would rather you entered from the old Forge end and cut toward this direction, rather than drive through the stream and then start your cutting. So you would be
The
staying
access
out-
point?
Yeah,
Yeah.
staying out, and then you could cut the one at Chief Justice from the driveway. You wouldn't have to go in the stream, so.
Yeah.
The other one is should it be done seasonally? Should it be a winter thing, not during the middle of the summer when there's a driving to a wetland? Maybe it should be during the frozen time of year, or,
Well, if it's frozen, but the other point to be, the best time to do it would be when it's dry,
yeah, fall.
so it's less damage.
Although I don't know what your needs are. You probably need to get out there soon, right?
Well, they typically use it to walk back and forth between those two stations. The only reason for the equipment to get in is to move what has fallen in the way
yeah.
now. But
And then, does it have to be 20 feet wide? That was the other thing. If it, minimize whatever path you need.
I don't know how wide it is now, whether it's
not
older
20.
growth.
Yeah, it's
or-
not 20, though.
Well, it probably was 20 at one point in time.
Well, there's a cleared area, so, I mean,
Yeah.
there's big trees that are much closer than 20, so.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
So if you can keep it to a minimum, whatever
Yeah,
you need.
and just move what falls. No need to clear it any wider than it is.
Just a walking path.
Yeah.
So I make a motion, unless somebody else has a issue with it. No. I make a motion for -3, and we will try and do a maintenance plan with it.
Give that plan to Pat, or does he already have one?
I got him.
He's got that.
Okay.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Great.
Oh, that's right, you already started this.
You're up.
This is to install a small, now it's a 25 by 40, we've been calling it a Quonset hut, kind of the arched buildings that you see to house our Vector truck that is used by both the sewer department and the highway department for clearing drains, both with the jet and the vacuum half. It would be located at the Highway Public Grounds Department at 68 Captain Pierce. There were right now there are 4 Connex trailers, those large shipping container boxes that were located in this location. We relocated 2 of them, and we'd like to put this building up in the location where the boxes were. It's an existing paved area. The grading will not change. You can see the edge of pavement, you can see where the existing boxes were located.
But you're not going to disturb anything, right?
No, this will have a poured foundation, so it'll be paved back up to the edge where it is, at least on the, let me say, the west and the south side. You see the location of the new storm scepter we added last year. And the building has a finished grade about 3 inches above existing grade, just to keep water from entering the building, yeah. It's a $150,000 vehicle. Should be in a building when they're new.
Yeah.
Not ours, but.
How about any siltation or anything, any hay bales, any work, like?
Sure, yeah, we could definitely provide that on the lot currently. The pavement pitches right down to that storm scepter that has an open front to it. Yeah, I would say definitely that hay bales be placed on the westerly edge.
Whatever you think is appropriate, Pat.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
Waddles.
Well, you won't be able to stake them in because it's
Right.
paved. So I don't know if
So
those will
maybe the
just
hay bales
float right down. Yeah, maybe the hay bales are a little bit heavier. and along the back edge, too. And
Just
the-
where you're working.
Right.
Keep everything on the pavement.
It will flow towards the storm scepter, but sure, we can put hay bales around the perimeter of the work, yeah.
Well, plus we don't want all the silt going into the storm scepter.
We don't want, right, we don't want to be pumping that out the week after either.
Okay.
We also talked about there's some future stuff we'd like to clean up out there, whether it has to be part of this RDA or not. There's a lot of debris that, when someone gets a septic, we ask them to clean up the debris. There's some
Right.
debris in the wetland that, some metal things, look like railroad ties almost. I mean, they could pull those out. So Sean and I, we could take a walk out there.
Why don't you do that? Take a look and see if you can get them to straighten out.
Yeah, it's a tough site because it was built on fill and wetlands a long time ago.
Oh, yeah.
So the wetlands are right up against anything
Yeah.
you do is in the wetlands, so.
Those are probably the old railroad ties.
They might be, yeah.
The
train
original.
is right
The original
beside,
railroad.
too.
Yeah, because it went right through, well, it
Yeah.
goes through there again. Yeah.
So we can talk with Sean and Kevin about that.
Okay.
Sure.
They have the trucks to clean it up. I make a motion for -3.
Second?
Second.
All in favor? Okay, great.
Thank you very much.
Getting there. Thank
Nice
you.
ride home, Sean.
Is that it? Are you done?
He wants to go home.
4 of them, that's enough.
He's got to drive down to
Down the way?
That's where he lives. That's a long ride. He's got a long ride.
Almost as far as Hummerock.
It's
Almost.
farther.
Glades Road?
Yes.
On November 18th, 8:30 PM, the Town Hall of Scituate Conservation Commission will hold a wetlands hearing under Chapter 131, Section 4 of the Massachusetts General Laws and Section 30700, Town of Scituate Code of Bylaws regarding the Chamberlain Management Company / PM Abbott to repair an existing seawall and install revetment on property located at 0, AKA 1000 Glades Road, Scituate. Abutters and other interested parties are invited to attend.
Do you guys get the photos from this one?
Yeah,
You seen them? You got them? Okay.
I'll pass them.
Thank you. Those are helpful, John, all the photos of the existing conditions.
Yeah.
And here I
There's a
have,
bunch in there.
I didn't get one, so I got you that.
Oh, okay.
Everybody else.
Fire up.
Ready? Okay, I'm John Chessier with Chessier Consulting Services, and we're here to present for the Glades. As you probably all know, the Glades is way out at the tip here, Strawberry Point, and this is actually the seawall that's right at the end. The picture's actually better, this aerial picture, so this is the old hotel, and there's a seawall essentially right around like this. There's also a seawall on this side that's made out of stones. You can see the revetment stones here. This is ledge out here, and this plan actually shows the access route they would take to do the revetment work. So right now, here's some pictures also of what the wall looks like. So there's a few different sections. This section in here actually has been rebuilt. I'm not sure when, but someone knocked it down, they rebuilt it. This is in much better shape. This wall section in here, this is the newer wall, this is the older wall, this is the joint. You can see this is in kind of tough shape. The rocks for the revetment are like this. They were like this, basically level right along, and you can see where they've all been sort of displaced in areas like this, and the walls falling, whatnot. That sort of explains it in the pictures. This is sort of a blow-up of the area on the plan, which I didn't color, and I usually do because there isn't that much to color, because it's basically fixing what's there. The revetment's essentially this hatched line. There's a section right here where the wall's fallen down. This wall, essentially from here to here, is made out of the beach stones. it's probably, I don't know how old, but it's probably pretty old, because it's not, this one's got sharp stones in it, but this one's made out of the stuff that
The
was...
cobble, huh?
Yeah, I mean, they're round.
Yeah.
You can see it. Anyway, what we'd like to do this winter is to repair the revetment where it's really fallen down, which is essentially in this section. And then, because the season's gotten faster, so next year when the weather's warmer, they want to take that down. So basically you can see the footing in this area. They want to take this down again so you can get at it and repair this falling in these areas here like this. And that would power wash it, chip it down, shotcrete it. It's just sort of a cosmetic thing, but it is it was pretty well eroded in some areas. It probably goes in about this far. I mean, the wall's massive. It's not moving really, but I'd like to patch that up and then put the wall back. I mean, this is an area, just to show again on the plan. I mean, the mean high water actually is here. It doesn't. This is beach that stays beach unless there's a storm, and then it can kind of flow over. And you can see by the elevations, this is a lot higher, so it doesn't even. The mean high water is actually below even the footing of this section of wall.
Okay.
You can see the footing is exposed when you walk along. You can kind of see spots where the stones are displaced. And we could actually get it with a survey right here to see it. Up here you can't because it's in better shape because it's so much higher, it just gets less waves. So the plan is, if it's approved, would be they would come in as soon as they can to just repair that section with some stones. And then next year, they take the stones, pull them down, shotcrete the bad areas, and then put the stones back after it's set up.
Is this a continuation? A few years ago, they were out there doing seawalls. Remember? Cap?
Who owns the seawall?
It's theirs.
It's all private.
It's all private. Yeah. No, I was just wondering if this was a continuation of that job.
Did you go out there for that
Yeah.
issue where they dug the
I
mosquito
think
trenches back
There was
out?
a job
that's
on
the
the other side.
Yeah.
Okay.
This is on the other side.
There's a
Right.
stone.
This is
That's okay.
towards the
I
tip
just
and one
didn't know
towards the
that.
ocean.
No, on
No.
this
Where we
side
were
is
was on the
actually
inside
big
towards
granite.
Right,
Cohasset
we're
Harbor.
very familiar with it.
And I know they did some
Yeah,
work at
you
the top of
remember it,
that.
right?
I wasn't
Yeah.
involved, but they did some work.
Yeah.
This is the building.
Can I just ask, and maybe it's obvious from here, when they're doing the work with the rocks, does the equipment have to go out on the beach?
Yes, that's, so what,
So
I
this
talked to the
Blue
contractor
path.
Yeah.
who has done lots of work up there, Pat Pomfrey.
Yeah.
And
So when we were there, we came
he would
down
build a little,
out
this is
this
ledge here, he'd build a little ramp
That
down
marsh
over
is
the
over
ledge
here.
and then walk his
So
machine
this,
down
when you
there
drove in, the
when the
tennis
tide
courts
allows
were here.
and work. The thing is,
So they want to fix
to
this.
work from above, you're putting a lot of pressure
ocean's
behind
out
that wall
here.
for one.
Oh.
And secondly, you can't see.
So they
No,
could be like.
I just wanted to make sure I understood how
Yeah,
they were
there's a
going to do
road.
it.
Yeah, that's how
They're
they
gonna
do it. They
Okay.
put it
crawl the
like this
machine
right
in
along there
and work at the
work.
bottom
And
of
really,
it.
the work section is.
So the machine will be like on the
is
beach
right
in
this
front of
part
it.
It's not, this part's okay.
Right.
It's down towards
Yeah.
there.
Doesn't look
I
like
also,
it's gonna hurt
if you want to see, I
Does
did
it?
show, I have some cross sections of the wall as to what they would do. And they put the same stones that they have, they'd be like 1.5, 2 ton stones. These sections were taken, A, B, and C. So A is right in the middle of where they rebuild it. B is just past it, and C is over here where there's a section that fell down. Actually, you can see pieces of this down in here, where the wall came down, but that wasn't rebuilding. So this is the footing, which you can see, mean high water is here. And you see some sections, the mean high water is like in the beach. So they'd be rebuilding this.
So mine
they'd
at
be
beach.
checking out fixing this
And we
wall.
drive out that long road.
Is there any particular restrictions in terms of the equipment they...
More the timing, too. You want to
Yeah.
be not in there during the high tides.
Oh,
and,
You have to, you're not gonna.
Right. And DEP recommended that you contact Chapter 91 on this.
We're all above mean high water, so.
But I think they still want you to at least send them
Not
a
so much
letter
cleaning,
proving,
though.
you know, that,
Like a lot of it's
the
really
wording is, if necessary, contact Mass DEP Waterways for direct
Get all the
mailing
dirt
or
and stuff
provide
off it, and then
information
we
why a license is not
shotcrete.
required.
So they're actually gonna
Because from
spray
there,
concrete
you
on
know,
the
from the
face
description, they
that's
couldn't
more-
tell if you're between the tide lines.
Sort of restore it.
So,
Right, well, okay, I can do that, but
It's called shotcrete.
yeah.
Other
Yeah,
than driving the
Spray
beach, works all
concrete
about
with
that.
yeah.
Well,
I was out there with Pat,
I've been out
but
there. I've seen
at
it.
least you covered it.
Layer of concrete right over, see how much.
And the natural heritage thing,
concrete's
it's
really
only the
deteriorated.
water, it's not on the
Yeah.
shore, okay?
No, it's not.
Yeah.
I looked at that too, 'cause I was-
Yeah,
If the
then it
wall-
becomes on the shore when you go around the bend.
If the
It's
walls are
all
good, I don't think
on the shore if you're facing west from their property, that's all, yeah.
That doesn't really bother me.
Yeah, it looked like it was out here.
Yeah, it is,
Not-
Jackhammers.
And, you know, the coastal bank is right,
Do a form and you'd put
so
more.
there is a slope here, there's a
This'll-
steeper. You kind of
So
see
that's kind of like a sprayed version of flat work?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
I make a
See
motion
how
to
bad that's
close.
fallen.
I second it.
All in favor?
Aye. We're all done.
Yeah, but she's getting a lesson, that's it, that's good.
Thanks, John.
Interesting.
So John, make sure you get something
3
to
years
us
ago, I got
on
the same
chapter
lesson.
91. Yeah.
So don't feel special.
Maybe I need to call on that.
It was, the letter came from Greg DeCesar, so he's the one that said you may need a 91, when he was giving us the DEP number. He gave us the number, and then he said 91 license may be required. But when you explain to him or show him the plan, he might say,
Should I call him before I talk to anyone there, or?
well, they gave a number for the waterways.
What do you hear from
program.
him?
Yeah. All right.
11 Eisenhower.
Okay.
Thank
This
Mark?
was the one, the informal.
Mark, will you,
Hi, I'm just here. I know the residents there, Rich and Roberta, Ellen and Eisenhower.
oh, okay.
And I know the situation. I've known for years.
Okay.
Probably just come. I told them I'd come down here and provide this to them.
Well, let's discuss that next so these guys can go home.
I want to go home.
It's all right. Where are we with that?
Yep, that's fine.
That is next.
Okay. Do you want to,
Well, I guess, for the record, I'm Mike Hayes, and I represent the Colemans, who have moved to North Carolina after 23 years of Scituate and about 13 years on Eisenhower Lane. They moved to assist their son and his family during some difficulties. The house was put on the market, sold, scheduled for closing. Title search was done by the bank, and the order of conditions came up, and there has never been a certificate on that. There are some problems there that Pat and I have been discussing. And
Yeah, they saw it last meeting. This is a continuation.
Oh,
so
I didn't realize,
Yeah.
I didn't realize that.
Oh, yeah, no, we talked about it last meeting.
Yeah.
Nobody told me that, but my guys didn't tell me that. What the Colemans have asked me to do is to meet informally with you to see if there is a possibility for a compromise regarding remediation of what's been done there. Pat and I have discussed that while they understand exactly what's going on and the reasons for the commission being involved at this point, and they appreciate the job that everybody does, if they would be forced to remove the driveway here, it would be a catastrophe to their family financially, and they would probably lose the sale of this house. They've suggested to me that they'd be willing to pay a fine, would be willing to remove a portion of the garage, of the driveway, and do any plantings or enhancements that the commission might want, but total removal of the driveway would both destroy them financially and lose the sale of this house.
Does anybody need to see the plan?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I looked at my office. Excuse me.
kind of remember what we had there, but I just soon.
It's supposed to be a gravel driveway, and they went and they paved it, and their deck is much bigger than it was supposed to be. So my first question to you is, why did they do it? It wasn't on their plans.
I have no idea.
Shouldn't have done it. Made a huge mistake there.
They understand now they have made a mistake. There's no doubt
I
about
mean,
that.
when you have plans, I don't know, wait for Pat to bring that, but I do believe they're awful close to the wetlands.
Oh, I agree. No doubt about that either.
Cal, can you help him with that?
I think I better.
He gets lost.
Where's Pat? He just went home.
He left and kept going.
Denny, you guys want to add anything to this?
No, I think Mike covered it fairly well. I mean, they realized that it was a mistake. I think they're just trying to find some kind of a compromise resolution short of,
What
totally
happened?
destroying.
He lost
You was
it?
mentioning some of the costs it would take to dig it up and redo it
He
would
locked himself out of his
completely
office.
wipe them out. And now they're down, putting a lot of money into another house to
You don't
try to
have a
fix
kid?
up down in
Took it today to
Carolinas
make a
for
new one for
their
Karen.
son, so
Okay,
it would pose an unbelievable hardship
sure.
and definitely wipe them out.
There is, as you drive into the property, straight on the driveway, if you go, the house is on the right, there is a large area of basically a turnaround pavement, and that would be the area that they would be willing to compromise and remove a portion of that and replace it with gravel or pervious pavers or whatever, but they feel that they could remove at least 10 feet on that end, which gets it away from the wetlands, or further away from the wetlands. And that would be one of their suggestions for a compromise that would save them and save the sale of the house. So.
Okay.
How do you know the sale of the house will fail?
Because the buyers, one of the reasons the buyers of purchasing this home is to live there, obviously, but they also have a recreational vehicle, one of those Winnebago that they would park in the driveway, and they need a paved surface to park the Winnebago, and they have told the Coleman's attorney, who's representing them in the sale, that if the paved driveway is removed, they will invoke their rights under the purchase and sale agreement that would demand that the Colemans deliver the property the way it was when they put their offer in and walk. They're actually living in the house right now, rent-free, pending resolution of this. And they have told the Colemans that they will move out and they will cancel the sale if the driveway is forced to be removed. But
Mr. Duffy, do you want to add anything?
Yeah, do you have any pictures of the property?
They're locked in my office.
You
They
can't get in
took
the
my key to make another key today, and my coat's in there, everything's in there.
Your car keys are in there?
I have my car keys in my
Rich
pocket.
Coleman moved into that property, it was a mess, and that whole wetlands was all full of tires and refrigerators, and everybody dumped their stuff right down over the hill. And in the 15 years that he's been there, he's cleaned that up, because he's a neatnik, and when he put that driveway in, he was trying to make it neat, and that whole area looks real nice.
Okay, thank you.
One of the things the commission deals with is a lot of times people get approved for a project and then it grows over time. And then they come back to us, they're looking for a sign off and it's a whole different, and we get a lot of these. And, a lot of times something can be planted or ripped up, but, this is a big chunk of driveway. This is one of the bigger variations from what the original approved plan was. The deck is a lot bigger than it was approved, and it's right in the wetlands. But the other part of this, the offsetting thing is, this was built before the Wetlands Act, and it was probably on fill in the inner wetland. So it started out as a site that's difficult, and he made it a little bit more. And we talked about, could we do plantings to make?
Now, you want to come to us and
They don't.
ignore all the violations? I think my answer is no.
Is there, I mean, well, we have looked at these before in terms of doing some plantings. I think you said, you met with Mike on the site?
No, I had been out to the site before the last meeting, and I talked to Mike on the phone. I talked to the property owner a couple of times, and I talked to the buyer a couple of times, so.
Buyer was here last meeting.
Let's just let Pat.
Yeah. I mean, we do get some people who say, I know I'm not supposed to put a driveway, I'm going to put it in. But many times, they come to town hall and they're told they don't need a permit for a driveway. So it could be a completely innocent
Do you have an order of
mistake.
conditions that said that they could have a paved driveway?
There is one, but driveway didn't come up in it. It was gravel, and they just didn't ask for it at the time. So I'm assuming.
The order of conditions were for a deck.
In a shed, I think.
In a shed or something like that. So what Pat's saying is that there's a possibility that they can do some planting to offset the size of the deck.
For the deck, yeah, I mean, it's on
the deck's on sonotubes, it's not on a foundation. So if we can get some enhanced plantings there, and then there's a portion of the driveway that can be converted to gravel or pavers or something.
I mean, that's one of the things that we talked about as a middle ground thing. Right?
Is there any way...
I mean, you could go all out, rip everything out and go back to gravel, or you could do something less, and it's kind of up to the commission to decide.
When you tear out the asphalt, you're going to disturb a bunch of stuff as well. So if there's an area that you can do that and then create an area where, say, the water runs or whatever into some stone or something, as opposed to, well, just in a lot of ways, sometimes a paved driveway, depending on the application, we just discussed this.
Old Oaken Bucket?
Well, or with the stormwater piece that we're going to address again tomorrow. You have a vehicle that's parked for a long period of time and something. If you have asphalt, if the thing's leaking any oil or gas or anything like that, it shows up on the asphalt, it doesn't wind up going into the ground. If you have it just crushed stone or gravel, if you have a vehicle that's dripping or whatever. And this is the thing that we discussed with the stormwater and how to deal with certain pollutants. So, I mean, I'm not trying to make an excuse for it. I'm just saying if there's a compromise to be made, think about how that would best work for this piece of property.
Yeah, I mean, what we had talked earlier was, it sounds like some reduction in impervious should be asked for, but it's up to.
And will there be a reduction in the deck?
Well, if we did plantings, I mean, a deck on sonotubes it's less than a garage. That's, it's going to have total ground cover and everything, but,
What kind of an area would you think plantings would work there, Pat?
To make up for the deck, I mean, it's up to us. There's no set rule on it, maybe the size.
Sort of the same thing that we did for that house on First Parish Road. We found the deck was a little bit bigger and a little bit of disturbance, so we asked them to plant out that area where the lobster traps were.
Yep. Yeah, I think the plantings is the easy part.
It's how much of the driveway goes and what do we put back there?
Right. I had mentioned pervious pavers, but there's a cost to that,
Right.
know.
I'm thinking it'd be better if it was just crushed stone or something as a receptor to the water. I just can't tell the way it pitches or anything from...
Yeah, it's flat, and then it's on fill, so when it gets near the wetland, it just drops right off, It's a fill lot, but, I mean, maybe the old owner and the new owner could, say, all right, I have to take some of it up, and then maybe you could put the pavers down, if this guy really
Yeah, we don't
wants
want to get into mediating that.
Right, I mean,
I think we
that
just
could be
need
up to
to
them.
tell them what we want done there.
Right. Sorry, I can't get at the plan and the size of the parking lot.
I mean, personally, I think...
Frank brought up the picture.
Right, the picture.
Well, Mark did. I'm not that tech. I guess certificate of compliance is something that you can typically do. You bring it to the commission when there's an issue.
Usually it's like this, there's a closing in there, last minute, yeah.
So, I mean, I'd be comfortable with Pat working out something that he felt was correct for that site, and if the owner will work with, or can live with it, then that's fine. It would include some plantings, a reduction some in the driveway, some stone, and then maybe looking at an area to make sure that we don't have anything running off into the wetlands. If there's somehow they can create a little bit of a berm or
Right, there wasn't vegetation or trees removed for the creation of the paved driveway. It was
Right.
gravel, it was an area that was already cleared, so there's...
Right.
But, I mean, it's up to you guys if you want to have a reduction in pavement, but not the whole thing, and some plantings. I could work that out with Mike and the owner, or it's up to you guys.
I mean, I don't have an issue with that.
I'm okay with it. I do think that some of that driveway has to go. Turn around.
I don't understand why we're compromising. I'm tired of compromising, so I say no.
I say no. I think the driveway has to go, and the new plantings for the deck. They had an order of conditions, and they intentionally violated it.
Well, the order of conditions were for the deck, which they did violate by making the deck bigger. The driveway is unfortunately something that happens, as Pat says, all too often. People don't even realize that they need permission for a driveway. And I'm not saying that makes it right or wrong, but I think that there's a difference between intentionally violating something and doing it because of lack of information or whatever. And I don't know, I'm not...
I mean, I don't vote on the commission, but I don't come down on just doing some plantings for the deck and letting it go, and I don't come down ripping on everything. Kind of like, yeah, remove some driveway, do some plantings. There's no absolute right or wrong answer. It's whatever the commission decides.
Tell you what, we're not going to solve this tonight. We don't even have a full board here. So why don't you see what you can come up with as a compromise, bring it back to us, and we'll see if we
I just want to
can...
make one point, okay? He came for a deck. He knew he had wetlands. And he put a driveway in, asphalt, after the fact.
But some people don't know that that is a problem.
Well, he knew he had wetlands.
But that, you and I know that.
Well,
We appreciate your time, truly, and I'll talk to Pat some more. and
I'll
see
have
if
the
we can
file
come up
next
with
time.
A suggestion, and the board...
Well, I think we're more than that. I think let's come up with a plan that the board can actually say yes or no to, all right? If we can do that, make a little sketch, do something, and then bring it back, and hopefully the next meeting we can, and I'll try to take a ride out there and actually look at that location.
And I get what Penny and Lisa are saying is, we have an order for a reason, and so often we get them, years later they come back in and it's like, am I at the right house? What has happened here?
You don't have to go there.
I said, why do I have to follow rules?
Right.
Because you know better.
That's right. My mother taught me, you follow the rules. They're made for everyone. I'm sorry.
I understand.
You got it.
Again, we appreciate your time.
All right.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Thanks for your concern for these folks as well. What else you got, Pat?
Let's see, we saved the best for last. We have a few enforcements. No, they're pretty quick. Carol has orders, too. You guys looked at any of the orders?
I tried to print them out, I ran out of black ink.
Yeah, they're long.
I look at them, I don't even print them anymore.
That's where the
Yeah, the special ones, the
Yeah, the
continuing
special
ones.
stuff is- all the other
conditions.
stuff is
It's boilerplate,
normal.
right.
Well, this is all I got printed out, that was her email.
Oh, okay, well, that's not gonna work. Okay, I make a motion that we accept the orders as written for 168 Central Ave. That's the concrete wall, we're gonna,
DEP, it'd be interesting
Well,
if
let
they,
them-
well, it'd be good,
Yeah.
if they look at it and agree with us,
yeah.
then we'll know that you can raise one in place.
Yeah,
That's a big
because
issue, because that other one,
Yeah.
he's not in place, but if he had put
No.
it where he should have.
No, I was good with that. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Davis
Oh,
Trust?
yeah, the orders of conditions for Davis on Hummerock Beach Road, we should accept them as written too.
Second.
That was
All in
the
favor?
Yeah, the
firehouse.
firehouse.
Yep.
All in favor?
Aye.
Just to be sure, it's not a firehouse, it's a regular house.
Yes, right.
Yeah, no. Due to the fire, the one that was
Right,
burnt
right,
down.
right.
SMJJ Real Estate Day
Elevator
Leader,
addition,
Graves Road.
yes, that's off.
It's
at
right next to
Adelaide.
Montvale, the
Yeah.
house road.
Yeah, I make a motion, we accept the orders as written.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Shores, 304 Clap Road, garage addition septic.
I make a motion, we accept those orders as written for 304 Clap Road.
The big condition on this one is they need to put money in escrow.
Yeah.
Yes.
Gotta get,
Well,
and
that's on there.
we've
But it's
written
on there,
that
right?
on
Yeah,
there, but
it is.
We haven't seen a lot of movements with checkbooks on this one.
Well,
Been a lot of discussion, but no green stuff.
yeah.
All right.
So we gotta keep an eye on it.
Well, because, I mean,
Oh,
this
yeah,
is
we
going to
won't-
change.
we won't issue
This is
it.
going to change hands, and the plantings aren't going to be done, and we want some assurance.
Right.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the enforcement ones, the first few, there's nothing new. I've been running around, so I haven't
Yeah.
followed up on the first three. On Lot 2, Peggotty Beach Road, we received a request today to extend the ORAD from Mr. Hoffler. So I will research that and we'll bring it for a vote on the December 2nd meeting.
Okay.
There's been some work done by Public Works on that, and I can fill you in. Staging area in Lawson, that's an enforcement order to Public Works and the contractor. There was enough going on with them tonight, I wanted to separate this from that.
Yeah.
But that's going to be written up as an enforcement order.
They know it's coming, don't they?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, you know that.
But they think it should go to the
Yeah, they
contractor.
didn't want to bring it up tonight.
No, I don't blame them. No, I'm
Yeah,
glad.
they had enough
Yeah,
going on
they did.
tonight. 24 Webster,
Yes.
yes.
The wall.
Yes.
That's what, tomorrow?
Tomorrow.
At 4
Whoever
o'clock?
wants to visit.
I'm
Yes.
there.
You know what? This person heard that he could keep part of a wall and took it literally and built the wall of China
No, it was
around
the
house.
existing wall.
Right,
That
right.
was there, not build a new one.
Not build a new one. And
You know what?
I did think the letter was pretty respectful.
What?
Like a
Yeah.
3 times deck.
Only it's concrete.
Yeah. I did think that the letter back was pretty respectful.
Yeah.
I think they might be okay to
Yeah,
tear it down.
yeah. Yeah, it should come down. I
Yes,
mean,
it
this-
should.
this
Like I
is-
said, I'll be there.
Well, we made the comments when we were out there, when they put the pilings
We did,
in,
yeah,
how the
absolutely.
water would run right down under.
You know what? That guy, I think, sold the house. I
He
don't
did.
think it's him.
He did
Oh,
sell the house.
really?
Not
It's a
him.
different person.
Yeah, it's
Oh,
a different
it's
guy.
No, it's a different person.
Oh, man.
Yeah,
Who actually, part of his company is conservation.
yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
Get out.
I'm serious. I looked him up. Well, that's what I do, so it's not pretty
Yeah,
easy for
yeah.
me.
yeah.
Oh, wow.
Oh, boy.
That will be interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, Dodge Road is right down the street from there, and they have put bricks on the private way for about 60 feet by 40 feet. So
Oh,
it's
yeah, I
basically
saw
like a
that.
paved
Gotta
road.
do that one without me.
Yep, okay. Yeah, you know what? I couldn't get a name, or it's not even...
Oh, you want a name?
What's the
I'll get
case
you the
of this
name.
one? It's not, it wasn't down as Dodge Road, right? It was down as something else?
Rock Beach?
No, yes.
Yes, Humrock Beach, that would make sense.
So we couldn't find the name or anything, so...
I can get you the name.
Okay.
Richard,
Concord
get
Ave, I told, this is Concord Ave, is the poured concrete, no forms wall. And
11 Concord.
I told him that I would have the letter from this week, so I'll just send him the
I
enforcement
thought he was
order.
coming, actually.
I told him, wait to get a letter, and I thought if I had a chance yesterday or today, I would have got it out, but it'll be next meeting. He's been at all the meetings. He's been at all the coastal meetings, and I
What are we
know
gonna
the
do about
guy.
these contractors that violate this and no?
Yeah, he's the
they're not
guy,
supposed
right. That's his second
to- This is the
second big one.
Yeah.
And he didn't answer previous letters or anything, so. But you're right, he should be in.
We have to find a way that these contractors just can't throw up their hands and say,
Does the town has no licensure of contractors, correct?
Septic they do.
That's it?
You gotta be a building.
Or maybe a
contractor.
sewer contractor, they
Yeah.
have a
Yeah.
drain layers license.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think you were
But guys who
using
dig holes and pour
term
concrete,
contractor a
they're
little too broad.
dime a dozen.
you know, I think you're right. You excluded.
I make a motion, we accept the minutes of September 16th as written.
Okay, second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And then we have one last request for a certificate of compliance. Somebody must leave the room. So,
Oh, is it for you?
You have to leave it wrong.
yeah, absolutely.
Is he gonna make a bad face?
I don't want him,
Oh, don't fall.
I don't want him winking
He's
at
already in
the
his
members.
car.
This is,
Sign the other papers, Richard, don't go too...
Mr. Harding had a work done in the past, and it was an addition, and it was several years ago. So,
Is he selling?
no, it'd be financing. So there was a,
I just.
Nothing secret. Nothing sacred, is it?
Nothing.
so
Did he
there-
do it right or not?
Well, what happened, there was not...
Throw the book at him.
It wasn't a structural engineered plan coming in, so it doesn't have to be stamped by a structural engineer at the end. It was closet, some addition, and he removed a bunch of impervious. So we asked him to have the contractor who does the work in the house look at the proposed plan and say if there's any differences from the as-built. And Carol, I wasn't there for this, and that went through okay? Okay, so that went through okay, and that could be issued.
Okay.
Bless you.
In a nick of time.
Sounds good. That's
Okay.
it. I make a motion, we close.
Adjourn.
Good night.
Adjourn.
A long
Yeah.
night.